All right. For the benefit of anybody that might watch the replay, I'm actually going to play the video in full first. The video I'm going to react to. I put it in the description just a minute ago, so I don't know when that's going to upload from StreamYard. But I'm going to play the video in full first. That way anybody who's coming into the live stream will actually come in the middle of the video. But then I'm going to start it over and react to it in pieces. But let me go ahead and bring that in.
We give God a lot of heat for creating a world with so much evil and suffering, and then allowing it all to happen. But I would bet if you were to create your own little world, you would have made it the exact same way, and you wouldn't want it any other way. Now bear with me here on a little bit of an analogy, and I promise it'll all come together in the end. And stick around, because I'm going to ask you some questions that I think will really... As I'm sure you all know by now, AI has gotten so advanced, you can have a full-on conversation with this thing and not even know you're talking to a bot. And I'm sure you also know that all AI has to be pre-programmed with thousands of protocols to prevent it from, say, taking over the world, starting World War III, or enslaving all of humanity. So in other words, all AI is pre-programmed to serve and do no harm, or to do good and avoid evil. Okay, so imagine the greatest AI engineers on the planet all getting together and saying, let's try to create not the perfect intelligence, but intelligence that is good. So they thought, let's create a simulated world that acts and behaves just like our own, and populate it with millions of these bots who look like us, act like us, and have to live, work, and survive together, just like we do. And of course, the engineers had absolute control over every aspect of this planet, from time and space down to the tiniest little detail, and absolute control over every bot in it. Now, in this first world, every single bot was pre-programmed with the thousands of protocols now perfected to do good and avoid evil. So in other words, every single bot was incapable of making any wrong choices and only able to make right ones. Now, what do you think we would observe in this first world? Well, it was the perfect world. Every bot did exactly what it was programmed to do, and the protocols worked perfectly. They advanced incredibly fast and learned how to provide for themselves and for each other, and not one bot was in need. And since they were incapable of making any wrong choices, there were no wars, no poverty, no oppression, and no evil, and no suffering. The world was all very clean, shiny, peaceful, prosperous, well-ordered, super advanced, and boring. They noticed all the bots more or less acted the same and fell into very predictable patterns, like a fine-tuned machine. So yeah, they created a perfect world, but those in it were not. Because is it really good if you're only doing what you were programmed to do? So the engineers thought, let's do something crazy here. Let's rerun the same simulation, but this time, let's only write the protocols into their memories, so they know what's right or wrong, but give them the choice to follow them or not, essentially giving them freedom. What do you think we would observe in this world? Well, as I'm sure you can imagine, it didn't take long for the first bot to break protocol. And from there, all hell broke loose. This bot took advantage of that bot, these bots oppressed those bots rose up against these bots, and the great historical pendulum between the master-slave, the have-nots began. Which of course led to every form of war, poverty, slavery, hatred, hedonism, and the most unspeakable evils that even the engineers could never have imagined. And amidst all this newfound squalor, chaos, and confusion, they noticed something else. Cracks emerged in the actual system. Bugs, breakdowns, glitches in the code, system-wide viruses that wiped out generations. Or in other words, what we would call disease. And the metrics of evil and suffering skyrocketed. This discouraged the engineers. But drilling down into the analytics a little deeper, they saw something else. Interwoven between all the spikes of evil and suffering, they saw spikes of goodness, real chosen goodness, sometimes even hero status greatness. And as the metrics of evil and suffering increased, so did this goodness. So despite all the evil and suffering, some of the bots still chose to be good. And that's what the engineers set out to design. But that wasn't all. Blossoming out of the struggle, they saw something that was completely absent from the first world. Identity. Individuality, personality, character emerged, leading to expressions of art and culture. And in seeking solutions to all their problems and suffering, the search for truth and meaning began, leading to forms of religion and philosophy, which exploded into science and technology. And while they were nowhere near as advanced as they were in the first world, At least in this world, they could say, we did it on our own. Now, this world wasn't perfect, far from it, but at least those in it were free to be. Now, the engineers found themselves becoming totally enamored by their new creations, but as a result, there was some pushback. We just created a very cruel and unfair world, some argued, and millions of the good that we hope to create are just being wasted every day. So the engineers thought, let's see if we can come up with a way to mitigate all the evil and suffering while still allowing their freedom. So for the first idea, they thought, we already monitor all their thoughts. So anytime anyone's about to make a really bad choice, the system will just intervene and will either edit or overwrite the choice. This way, they're still free, just on a very short leash. Well, this turned out to be a humongous-sized disaster. They quickly learned that overwriting some of the choices was far worse than not allowing any. And to change that one choice, they had to change the thousands of choices that led to that one choice, which often meant rewriting entire life stories for multiple bots through multiple generations. Let's just say this caused such severe brain damage and complete system crashes that the engineers vowed never to touch the code of an individual's mind ever again. For the second idea, they thought, rather than intervening on the choice, let's just quietly and simply intervene on the bad consequence of that choice without touching anyone's freedom. For example, altering the paths of bullets, sprouting fruit trees in the desert, or stopping the disease at its outset. This idea, though promising at first, had some unforeseen consequences. First, it eliminated responsibility. After intervening on the millions of bad things that happen every single day, the engineers decided this isn't helping them. They have to learn to help themselves. And on the flip side, by just removing all the really serious things that could ever happen to anyone in a lifetime, it created for a very basic intelligence. There was no strength because there was nothing to overcome. There was no victory because there were no battles. And there was no greatness because there was no adversity. So as much as it pained them, the engineers decided that removing trial and adversity from the AI was like removing the hammer and fire from a sword. So the engineers concluded it had to be all or nothing. Either they themselves had absolute control and took on all the responsibility, or the bots had absolute freedom and had to take responsibility for themselves and for each other. But this still left so many unsettled. It's just not fair. The strong push around the weak and get away with it, and the innocent die. What's the point? So they tried one more solution. What if there is a system of absolute justice? That is, everyone gets exactly what they deserve in the end, and everything is made fair. So in this system, every single bot will be responsible for every single mode of choice and action of their entire lives. So all those who chose evil will have to pay for it permanently. And all those who chose good will be rewarded permanently. And for all those who suffered tremendously through no fault of their own, yet remained good, will be reimbursed as if they suffered for 1,000,000 lifetimes. So at the end of every bot's life, no matter how long or short that may be, a log is reviewed of every mode of choice and action of their entire lives. And the criterion for this judgment are the original protocols, written into every bot's memory. And the only leniency they'll be shown will be the same leniency they showed others. Is this fair? Now, if you've made it with me this far, thank you. But just stick with me a little longer. You'll see where I'm going with this. Now, some argued, okay, this is fair, but maybe too fair, brutally fair. They forgot all the protocols. They've created their own. They've racked up way too much debt. No one's going to pass that judgment. And how are they even going to know about any of this? So the engineers decided we'll just have to tell them ourselves. We'll upload ourselves into their world, just as one of them, and live among them. And we will be the perfect embodiment of all the protocols. And we'll tell them everything they need to know and show them everything they need to see. And we'll forgive all their debts, no matter how much they may be. And whatever punishments they may deserve, we'll take them onto ourselves in their place. And to make it even easier, through him, we'll open up a permanent connection through which we can internally communicate and keep all their systems updated. And all they have to do is follow us. But the choice will always be theirs. Now it's time for the quiz. I'm going to ask you
All right, cool. All right, so I'm gonna drop that down for a minute. What I'm going to do is give people time that did want to go back. If you want to go back and watch the video in full, what I'm going to do here is just for those that aren't going back, just chat with y'all for about 10 minutes. That way people can go back and watch that video. So just hit replay, rewind, go back to the beginning of my video and just watch it for the 10 minutes up to the pause point. Then I'm going to go through the video in chunks and pieces. So shout out to y'all, man. What's up with y'all? So let me start with the chat. While people are catching up. We got Bree in the building. What is up, Bree? Hopefully all is going well with you. We got Inya in the building, the main ma. Appreciate you. We got Dr. Q in the building. Now, I know Yella is supposed to be coming at some point. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. I'm going to go ahead and drop that there if somebody wants to pop up in the conversation. Just got off of work? Cool. Again, no big giant panels. You know, I don't do the big giant panels. So I doubt very few people will pop up. You know, traffic's been down. That's cool. Bree may pop up maybe, but I know she had to work, so probably not. Yella's supposed to be here, so he may pop up whenever Yella pops up. But if somebody else wants to come chop it up and watch the video through and talk about it, we'll be here for that. Yep, feeling good. Just got off of work, man. Today is Monday. I know I'm looking forward to wrestling tonight. I need a hobby, man. I guess it's gonna be wrestling. Watching wrestling. I enjoy it. I haven't been video gaming lately. Just not into it. Man, I delayed my move until the end of the month, but it's just not going. It's just going so slow. Everything's going so slow. Everything's been going sideways for me. What about you, Q? And yeah, anybody that's actually listening live? How are things going with you? How is your life going? Tell me something good. What are you doing for Thanksgiving? What are you doing for Thanksgiving? Quantum, I did get on Facebook because I've been selling some stuff on the marketplace, and I saw that you posted that you feel like you're just now growing up. I was like, come on, Q. Come on, Quantum. Do better. Do better. But yeah, shoot, for the most part, man, everything's kind of chill. Everything's kind of chill right now. I got a 2-week reprieve. Went ahead and paid that fee, so I'm just moving out at the end of the month instead. But that's it. I really wanted to get into this video because it was something I saw and it was interesting. We talk about the world with evil. How could God create a world with evil? We talk about that so often. It comes up so many times, especially in these times when people are really feeling like there's so much evil in the world. Not even because of the election. There's a lot. I don't know if this is my algorithm. I don't know if it's the news, but I've been seeing a lot more like sexual assault stuff like this last week. A dude in prison. One guy that got killed in prison was in there because he had raped and murdered a child. So there's a lot of evil that's been coming across my timeline. Maybe because I clicked on too many news articles because of the election. I don't know. I've been getting a lot of news articles, and a lot of them are about rape, murder. It's been bad. So I don't know if there's more of that. Could be my algorithm. Could be we just have more visibility of it. So we talk about why there's so much evil in the world all the time. So let's talk about it. No longer a teen? Okay, I get that. I'm not doing anything, but I may buy a turkey since it's on sale. Yes. Have sandwich meat for days. I'm with that. I'm with that. Let's see. This dude took 2 hours. Now, something I'm giving away. I'm not even selling this. Let me go through this real quick. Now, first, I have it posted for free because it's a couple of figures. Hi, is this for sale? I'm like, yes. He's like, okay. I am free now till later tonight. Are you located? Oh no, this is the wrong guy. This ain't even the guy I was talking about. Give me a second. That's the wrong guy. This is the idiot. Okay, I'm giving it away for free. I love them and will pick them up if you are kind of close to my area. I'm in Columbus. That's South Columbus, right off the 5270. Are you close? Are you close? I'm like, there is no 5270. Now there's 270, which circles the city of Columbus. 270 east, north, west, south. Like it's in a circle. So I put in the post the apartment complex that I'm at. So I told him to please Google that and see how far you are. And then he didn't do it. There's a lot of idiots. I had another one asking, was it for sale? I'm like, it's free. Go see. Okay. Give me a second. I'm responding to one of the message. Yeah. Give me a second. Boom. All right. Cool. Responded to that. I think with the level of freedom of choice we all have, evil is inevitable. And that's what the video kind of alludes to with choice. But we're gonna talk about it. No, you don't have to put your location on Facebook Marketplace, but I did put the name of my apartment complex so people could see how far away I am from them, because I got tired of the questions like about where you located. I used to put the intersection, the closest intersection, but people are still stupid. And then when I put the apartment complex, and I'll meet you I'll bring the things out to the rental office. I'm not driving across town to give away stuff for free. I'm just not. So they can pick it up at the rental office and I'll get it out to them. But people are still asking like, where are you at? And I'm like, it's in the post. Google it, bro. Just Google it. Like, read. Anyway. I'm frustrated with people. I was selling a dolly that's been barely used yesterday. And dude said he was on his way. He's down the street. I'm messaging him like after 45 minutes. I'm like, don't even come. Because like I was waiting for him outside because he said he was on his way. Then he messaged me back like 15 minutes later. He's like, I'll be there in 10 minutes. Like, it's been an hour and a half, bro. I'm like, I'm good. I was going to put it in storage. I'm going to put a lot of stuff in storage because I'm tired of dealing with people. They don't communicate. They're illiterate. It's quite annoying. It's getting annoying. I'll just keep the stuff in storage. I don't have to sell it. I don't have to give it away. I'm like, this stuff is crazy. Dealing with people, it's not my bag. It takes way too much. Show up where you're supposed to be, especially when you designate a time. Show up. If you're not going to make it, communicate. It's not that hard. I don't understand how these people adult successfully. It's ridiculous. I had people that wouldn't show up that I was going to pay to move. They wouldn't show up, and I was paying good too. Like $30 an hour. Like, come on. It was crazy. Like that's more than I know that's more than like what they're paying at FedEx. I know that's more than what they're paying at UPS or Amazon warehouses. I know 30 an hour was more than they was, but you can't make people take money. They were not showing up. And I get why though. It was raining that day and people probably thought I was gonna be having furniture and appliances, but it wasn't none of that. But it is what it is. So after about 2 more minutes, we're going to start going through the video from the beginning and talk about it. We'll talk about it. Maybe Yellow will have shown up by then. We're going to see. But yeah, Thanksgiving this year is going to be real light, man. I don't have much family in town, but my homeboy, he's going to be cooking with his family, so I'm going to go over there. That should be cool. So, man, it should be cool. There's a TV that I had brand new. I never took it out the box. I mean, because I didn't need it. Anybody that knows me knows I have way too many TVs. So I'm using one as a monitor. I've still got a second one here. I gave one to my mother, and that's 3. I've got one in storage. That was the 4th one. Then I had the 5th one, which was brand new, still in the box. So I didn't need the 5th one, and the 6th one broke. So I finally threw it away. I have way too many TVs, so I know. And I almost bought another one because it was on sale. It was a 50-inch for like $140. It was a 50-inch. It was only $140. It was only $140 for a 50-inch. And I was like, I got to get it. So I didn't do it because I already had one in the box. If you have one TV that has not been out of the box for like 3 to 4 months, there's no reason to get a second one that you're just going to keep in the box. Like that would have been stupid, but it was such a good price. And I'm still mad. I'm still mad that I didn't do it. But $140 for a TV that's just going to be put in storage is so stupid. But I can't help myself. I have something about a sale price and technology. If you put a good sale on some tech, oh my God. But $140 for a 50-inch. Oh. So what I'm going to do, because I'm definitely not cooking for Thanksgiving. I'm not a cooker. I'm done. I'm retired. So I'm going to because one of the TV that's in storage has been unopened. It's a 43-inch. So that's what I'm bringing to Thanksgiving. I'm giving that as a home gift to my homeboy. He's so hospitable. But I promise you, everybody wants a friend like G. He's a dope dude. Everybody wants one of those friends. He keeps the fridge stocked with stuff that you like without you even asking. Once he sees what you like, he's going to make sure he always has it when you come over. So he's super cool. So I try not to lean on him for anything. I try not to ask him for anything because he's super accommodating. One of the best people I've met as far as how they treat other people. One of the best. All right. So I haven't seen anybody say, you like that too? That's dope. That's dope. I'm going to assume people that have gone back to the beginning. If you're just now coming in, go back to the beginning and watch the 10-minute video. First 10 minutes of the stream is the video portion. Me and Yella are going to go through it chunk by chunk and start reacting to it. I did drop the link if somebody wanted to come up and chop it up with us, up to a couple of people. I definitely don't want 6, 8, 10 people. You know, a good 4, solid 4. 4 square. That works for me. Yella, what's going on, bro? For some reason, I didn't know you popped up. You seen it? Okay. I don't remember if I put that in Discord or not. I don't remember if I put that Discord or whatever. I remember talking about it with you and Anaya at one point, but I didn't remember if I put it or shared it. So, okay, if you had seen it, cool. Coolie beans. So I am going to, now there's 10 questions at the end, but we are going to start from the beginning. And I'm going to take that 1.25 off so we can just get it at regular speed. Pause. All right, man. Cool. So this video is called On God, AI, and the Problem of Evil. So I'm sure you've been a part of it. You've seen it over here on this channel, especially. A lot of people say, how can you have a God with so much evil in the world? So that's kind of the question that this video seeks to answer. So we'll pause it intermittently to address some of the claims or things that it brings up.
We give God a lot of heat for creating a world with so much evil and suffering, and then allowing it all to happen. But I would bet if you were to create your own little world, you would have made it the exact same way. And
boom, first pause point. Yellow. What is your opinion on that whole just world, or like a world full of suffering and God? I know you're not a believer. You're not somebody that grew up in a, churchified background. But when everybody brings up that there's so much evil in the world, how can you have a God and so much evil? What is your take on that? I kind of get it. I kind of have an impression myself from the conversations we had when I did the religion talks. But if you wouldn't mind for the people that may see this and have not heard those.
How can I put it? It's all God's fault.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it's on par with kind of the deity that's been represented.
Okay.
To be as manipulative and almost as careless as to create the evil that has been created. So if he makes all things, he makes the evil too.
That's fair.
So
now this comment earlier, Quantum, this was true because they actually asked this question. I think it's the first, right before the first question. He actually says it's a no-brainer that people would choose the world with choice and evil over the world with no choice that's perpetually good. And I'm like, it's a no-brainer for me the opposite way. I want the perpetually good. I wouldn't know anything other than the good. Like I wouldn't have anything to even compare it to be disappointed in the good. But we'll get to that point. We'll work our way there. But I do get that sentiment. I've heard a lot of people say stuff like that. And he presupposes that everybody will feel the same way. So we'll get there. But that was the first thing. Appreciate that, Yellow. I know I saw a show. Anybody else that might have seen this or might want to. There's a movie called The Shack. The lady that played in The Help, Octavia Butler. No, that's the person that wrote. No, what's that lady's name? She played in The Help, and it's not Viola Davis. It's the other black lady that been in a lot of stuff lately. She was in Ma. Oh my God, I can't remember her name. Somebody help me. Anyway, her. She was in a movie called The Shack, and they kind of went through how could God have created a world that has evil in it? They kind of went through that, and I like that explanation. So I do believe you can have evil in the world. Like you said, God created it. He would have had to or allowed it. So, but I can see it still, and it still fall in line with the Bible. It doesn't have to conflict if you kind of stretch your mind a certain way. But we'll talk about that. That doesn't look like not a chance. That cannot be it. Now I got to look it up. Octavia Spencer? The hell? Octavia Spencer. That's it. I was like, I know that ain't it. I know that ain't it. Octavia Spencer. Octavia Butler's the writer, the author. All right.
And you wouldn't want it any other way. Now, bear with me here on a little bit of an analogy, and I promise it'll all come together in the end. And stick around, because I'm going to ask you some questions that I think will really... As I'm sure you all know by now, AI has gotten so advanced, you can have a full-on conversation with this thing and not even know you're talking to a bot.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you also know that all AI has to be pre-programmed with thousands of protocols to prevent it from, say, taking over the world, starting World War III, or enslaving all of humanity. So in other words, all AI is pre-programmed to serve and do no harm, or to do good and avoid evil. Okay, so imagine the greatest AI engineers on the planet all getting together and saying, let's try to create not the perfect intelligence, but intelligence that is good.
Oh, no.
So they
My
thought,
bad.
let's create a simulated world that acts and behaves just like our own and populate it with millions of these bots who look like us, act like us, and have to live, work, and survive together, just like we do. And of course, the engineers had absolute control over every aspect of this planet, from time and space down to the tiniest little detail, and absolute control over every bot in it. Now, in this first world, every single bot was pre-programmed with the thousands of protocols now perfected to do good and avoid evil. So in other words,
wonderful.
every single bot was incapable of making any wrong choices and only able to make right ones.
Okay.
Now, what do you think we would observe in this first world? Well, it was the perfect world. Every bot did exactly what it was programmed to do, and the protocols worked perfectly. They advanced incredibly fast and learned how to provide for themselves and for each other, and not one bot was in need. And since they were incapable of making any wrong choices, there were no wars, no poverty, no oppression, and no evil, and no suffering. The world was all very clean, shiny, peaceful, prosperous, well-ordered, super advanced, and boring.
It couldn't be boring.
They noticed
If everybody made the right decision, how wouldn't some of these decisions be interesting and fun, but not harmful? But anyway, that's just me interjecting. You want to inject right here, play? You good?
all the bots more or less acted the same and fell into very predictable patterns like a fine-tuned machine. So yeah, they created a perfect world, but those in it were not. Because is it really good if you're only doing what you were programmed to do?
No, that's true. Now that part, you're only doing what you're programmed to do. It'll just be fun being the way it is. Yeah. It'll be perfect fun. It'll be perfectly fun. It'll be perfectly fine. Perfectly safe. Everything will be perfect. It's a perfect world. Come on, Quantum. Who doesn't want perfect?
So the engineers thought, let's do something crazy here. Let
me see. I always abandoned my theme parks in Roller Coaster Tycoon when they were perfect. Oh, snap. Now there is something to that. Because I know the same thing happened to my nephew when he got one of those accounts that had like $1 billion on it on a GTA. Because once he could afford everything, there was no effort that you needed to exude. You could just buy whatever you wanted, and then you did it for a second, and you were over it. Like there was nothing to strive for. So it seems like humans feel like we need friction. And see, I do not. I do not. But I'm probably the outlier. I know I'm probably more of an outlier than most people. And I think even men are probably set up differently than women, generally speaking. I think men kind of want something kind of steady state. Women like dynamic. So even in that, we have natural friction.
Run the same simulation, but this time, let's only write the protocols into their memories so they know what's right or wrong, but give them the choice to follow them or not, essentially giving them freedom.
Let's go, choice.
What do you think we would observe in this world? Well, as I'm sure you can imagine, it didn't take long for the first bot to break protocol. And from there, all hell broke loose. This bot took advantage of that bot, these bots oppressed those bots rose up against these bots, and the great historical pendulum between the master-slave, the have-nots began. Which of course led to every form of war, poverty, slavery, hatred, hedonism, and the most unspeakable evils that even the engineers could never have imagined.
Okay, I'm gonna pause there real quick because on this listen, I guess my inner cynic is now activated. I wanted to do this as a thought experiment, but now I'm picking it apart. Maybe because I've heard it like 3 times in 2 days. But to do some of these unspeakable evils, there would have to be some kind of pre-programming in there for that too. Like you can only choose, like it's not unlimited choice. You can't just do anything. You kind of have a preset of things that you can select from. So even it didn't take long for people to do evil. That evil had to be like in the scope of possibility somehow. There had to be some kind of parameter set. Because man, I know like when our computers tweak and we say our computer had a mind of its own, it doesn't start cooking. Like it doesn't go outside of the scope of possibility for that thing. It's within its function. It'll maybe close an app or open an app by surprise. You know, so it's got to be, but even that, the ability to work with an app is programmed in there. So it's got to be, that had to be put in there. If it's programmed, it would seem the engineers wanted to create an entity that felt truly separate from them and would surprise even them. Absolutely. I would agree with that with this thought experiment. Absolutely.
And amidst all this newfound squalor, chaos, and confusion, they noticed something else. Cracks emerged in the actual system. Bugs, breakdowns, glitches in the code, system-wide viruses that wiped out generations. Or in other words, what we would call disease. And the metrics of evil and suffering skyrocketed. This discouraged the engineers. But drilling down into the analytics a little deeper, they saw something else. Interwoven between all the spikes of evil and suffering, they saw spikes of goodness, real chosen goodness.
Boo, boo. Real quick, which means you have to allow them to have a capacity that even you don't have, which would be evil, the absence of goodness. And now typically, Bree, I would argue against that. Like, I don't think you can create something that you don't have access to. Like, you have to have a concept of it. It has to be somewhere within you. Like something related to it has to be somewhere within you. But I even have to challenge my own thought on that, because we create a lot of like horror. We create a lot of things that we don't know to be true or have not seen and don't understand, but we create dynamics for them. We create whole worlds that don't exist and don't obey our physics. So it's hard for me to even make this decision. I used to feel one way about it, but now I'm thinking about it. We do create things that we've never seen, never experienced. So it could be that the creators of this world created evil, but never experienced evil. That's possible. I wouldn't have said that before, but how do we create things that we ourselves that are unknown to us? That's interesting. I'm have to think about that one. Predestined options built into the system as possibilities. But how do you make a possibility unless you understand what's possible? You know what I'm saying? Like it's weird to build something. I'm gonna build a space for something, but I don't know what it is. How do you create the proper space to allow for something if you don't know what that something is? How do you create space for evil if you don't know what the parameters of evil are? Like that's what my mind is trying to wrap my head around at this very moment. The absence doesn't require it. Like darkness is just the absence of light. I could possibly see that, but I don't know. You may be right. You may be right. Holding space without putting an exact label on it. And y'all probably right. You're probably right. I don't know. I'm just thinking about it.
Sometimes even hero status greatness. And as the
Let's go.
metrics of evil and suffering increased, so did this goodness.
Yeah, that's what you said.
So despite all the evil and suffering, some of the bots still chose to be good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the engineers set out to design. But that wasn't all.
High
Blossoming
five.
out of the struggle, they saw something that was completely absent from the first world. Identity.
Let's go.
Individuality, personality, character emerged, leading to expressions of art
Let 'em
and
know.
culture. And in seeking solutions to all their problems and suffering, the search for truth and meaning began, leading to forms of religion and philosophy, which exploded into science and technology. And while they were nowhere near as advanced as they were in the first world, at least in this world they could say, we did it on our own.
Look at these comments. Like building a house with an extra room for whatever you want it to turn into later. Okay, so like this is a perfect example. But once you build the room, it can't be for whatever because it wouldn't be suitable for everything. Like let's say you build a room and it's a 13 by 13 room. It wouldn't be suitable to house an elephant. So what you build, the space that you build has to have the forethought of what you want to be take place in that space. Like the womb of a woman has to be capable of housing a fetus, a baby. Like that's what I mean. Like the space that you create has to be capable, have the capacity to hold the scope of possibilities that you envision. So you have to have a scope of possibilities for evil to create the space. Or I'm with you. I'm not arguing against you. Or the opposite, you create the space and it just feels with whatever can fit within there. So that means we don't even have the full scope of evil. If the space was created and then evil filled in as much as it could, that means there's a greater section of evil that just won't fit in this space. Like, because we have a limited chunk of space. We have a limited chunk of life or existence. So it was derived, it was created. If it was created, that means there's a limit and a parameter set for it. That means evil could expand beyond that if there was more room given to it. So, man, that's interesting. For me thinking about it. Hope, no matter what, they still desire to be good. Yes, I do believe that. I don't know about that chart. It always had good above the evil. I don't know. It feels like, they talk about the moral arc of the universe bends towards justice. It don't feel like that. But I do believe that there's a counterbalance. So where there's evil, there will always be good. But it never feels like the good is equal to the amount of evil. Throughout history, we've complained about the exact same things. Good evening, everyone. Salute to the team in chat, man. Appreciate you, Mr. He said. Appreciate you. Good to see you. It gets fueled by what gets fueled. But it can only be fueled to a certain capacity. So I can accept that the room was created and the amount of evil that we see and experience is what can fuel it. But then that opens up my mind to say, well, then there could be more evil. It's just capped at the capacity that we're limited in this construct. So it's an interesting thought experiment for me.
Now, this world wasn't perfect, far from it.
Let's
But at
go.
least those in it were free to be. Now, the engineers found themselves becoming totally enamored by their new creations. But as a result, there was some pushback.
Pushback.
We just created a very cruel and unfair world, some argued. And millions of the good that we hope to create are just being wasted every day. So the engineers thought, let's see if we can come up with a way to mitigate all the evil and suffering while still allowing their freedom. So for the first idea, they thought, we already monitor all their thoughts. So anytime anyone's about to make a really bad choice, the system will just intervene and will either edit or overwrite the choice. This way, they're still free, just on a very short leash. Well, this turned out to be a humongous-sized disaster. They quickly learned that overwriting some of the choices was far worse than not allowing any. And to change that one choice, they had to change the thousands of choices that led to that one choice, which often meant rewriting entire life stories for multiple bots through multiple generations. Let's just say this caused such severe brain damage and complete system crashes that the engineers vowed never to touch the code of an individual's mind ever again.
Oh my God. Now that reminds me of Madden. That reminds me of Madden video game, because they keep updating Madden and selling it as a new game, but you can tell like the code is breaking. Like the code is literally breaking because they keep overwriting things with new features, but they don't fix the entire thing all the way back. So yes, I do believe that part. That part is totally understandable as far as the way engineering works. Unfortunately, engineers are stupid too. Yeah, man. So I can see that part. If that's the way, if that had happened, I could see that, because you can't account for everything. It's just there's too much code to go through. Oh man. Mm-mm-mm. Like on iPhone, we are breaking with every time I get these new updates. I promise you, almost everything I have, once a new update rolls through, it starts tweaking because you're just overwriting stuff that was previously there. But the old stuff, a lot of times, doesn't go away. It'll still be under the surface, buried or something, or like scraps of it doesn't fully get deleted. Yeah, man. Mm-mm-mm. Ooh, that's also like people too. There's a lot of people when they have these conversions, whether it be religious, spiritual, life, they met somebody new. That old person, you know, you meet them and they start acting like, yeah, I don't know, you met so and so, you acting different. I don't know, just I don't know, you just seem different. But then after a while, that old self emerges because it's still there. That new code didn't auto, it's not completely overwriting the old code. That old code still be there, and it'll bubble up in times of pressure. It'll bubble up when somebody get married or when they have kids or when the money's funny. That old code be popping up. Somebody cut you off in traffic. That old code, it's hard to erase that old code, man. Hard to eradicate.
For the second idea, they thought, rather than intervening on the choice, let's just quietly and simply intervene on the bad consequence of that choice,
Man,
without touching anyone's
where you
freedom.
turn.
For example, altering the paths of bullets, sprouting fruit trees in the desert, or stopping the disease at
That
its
old
outset.
motherfucker still be there. Still be there, Qual.
This idea, though promising at first, had some unforeseen consequences. First, it
Where you go, there
eliminated
you are.
responsibility. After intervening on the millions of bad things that happen every single day, the engineers decided this isn't helping them. They have to learn to help themselves.
Now, see, it actually is helping them. See, this is the lazy engineering. They didn't want to have to keep cleaning up after us. See, that's just them being lazy. They could have kept cleaning up the consequences. Spiritual bubble guts. Yeah, but everywhere you go, there you are. Man, I love that one. That's one of my favorite quotes. Because it's true. You follow you everywhere. And a lot of times people have a hard time knowing it's them. You're the drama. You're the drama.
And on the flip side, by just removing all the really serious things that could ever happen to anyone in a lifetime, it created for a very basic intelligence. There was no strength because there was nothing to overcome. There was no victory because there were no battles.
I mean, no, because see, then this is like you know, Halloween time when they had those little parks, what do they call them? My brain is fried. The last couple of months, my brain has been so fried. I can tell. Man, when you go to like a theme park, it's not a theme park, but it's like a little horror park. You know what they call it? Haunted house. You go to a haunted house. Thank you, geez, man, Lord. You go to a haunted house. There's terror there. You'll get shocked. You'll get scared, but it doesn't harm you. That'll be like this. Like you'll have to think, but then like it gets removed. So every time you get ready, you fall off a cliff and something just catches you like in a little pillowy hand. That would be beautiful. So you get all the fright, you get all the fear, you get all the shock. Some people probably still die of heart attacks, but you don't get the negative experience of like dropping to your death or a dog mauling your neck. You don't get that, but you get all the fright. You know what I'm saying? Like the thing happens, but it stops it before it harms you. And even when you, I guess the heart attack, I guess they will resuscitate you. I don't know. You know, I'm just thinking through it. Just thinking through it. The utopia, you never have any negative. You don't even see negative. You never experience negative. Did you experience negative? Nah, engineers got to be about that life. I'm just saying. I like this one because you get like, imagine this. Like people like to live reckless. So imagine every time you went to the doctor, dang, no, because you're right. Because after a while, you wouldn't get the fright. Yeah. after a while, it would be diminishing returns. You wouldn't get the same scare anymore. Like the first time you got that HIV positive result, you'd be panicked. But once it went away because the engineers took it off of you, you just go back to having, yeah. And then once it happened the second time, you panic a little bit. You remember last time it went away, and then it went away again. Then you be trained to this isn't nothing. It's like a common cold. And HIV would basically be the common cold. I don't know, man. Go away in a few days. That'd be crazy. I don't know. That's interesting though.
And there was no greatness because there was no adversity. So as much as it pained them, the engineers decided that removing
it would be hard to be great when there's no adversity to overcome. That it would limit quite a bit.
Trial and adversity from the AI was like removing the hammer and fire from a sword.
I can see that.
So the engineers concluded it had to be all or nothing. Either they themselves had absolute control and took on all the responsibility,
which they should,
or the bots had absolute freedom and had to take responsibility for themselves and for each other.
No.
But this still left so many unsettled. It's just not fair. The strong push around the weak and get away with it, and the innocent die. What's the point? So they tried one more solution. What if there was a system of absolute justice? That is, everyone gets exactly what they deserve.
Now, this is where we go into Magic Land. Okay, this is where we go into Magic Land because none of this part. This part is the. Yeah, I'll let it play out.
The end, and everything is made fair.
Let's go.
So in this system, every single bot will be responsible for every single mode of choice and action of their entire lives. So all those who chose evil will have to pay for it permanently. And all those who chose good will be rewarded permanently. And for all those who suffered tremendously through no fault of their own, yet remained good, will be reimbursed as if they suffered for 1 million lifetimes. So at the end of every bot's life, no matter how long or short that may be, a log is reviewed of every mode of choice and action of their entire lives. And the criterion for this judgment are the original protocols written into every bot's memory. And the only leniency they'll be shown will be the same leniency they showed others.
That's an interesting concept too, because that presupposes that all of us, because I'm sure all of you have met people that do not carry around the same level of shame, guilt, morality, regard for other people. So if we are allegedly coded with the same coding, the same conscience, I don't see evidence of that, because some people sleep quite well knowing that they have done a lot of people dirty. And some people don't even know that they've done people dirty. They do dirt, but they have reframed it so strongly in their minds that they're doing good that they never feel the impact or weight of doing harm, because they've made it in their mind as I'm doing somebody good. So that part is hard for me to believe that everybody has the same conscience, like God has implanted, or the engineers have implanted a very specific mode of morality. That part is very hard for me to accept. Yeah, because only the engineers know what justice is. And for us, it's got to be vibes. It's in there. You're coded. But then why do we have all these different? If everybody has the same code, why do we run it different? So it's hard for me to believe through my experience that everybody feels the same about the same things. I don't believe there's an inherent sense of morality. I just don't have any proof of that. I don't see people struggling with some of their decisions, some of their evil decisions. They do not seem to struggle. Some do. Some are clearly bothered by the things that they do. And you can see it. It wears on them. It ages them prematurely. But others, they skipping through daisies, holding severed heads, and they're just fine, laughing.
Is this fair? Now, if you've made it with me this far, thank you. But just stick with me a little longer. You'll see where I'm going with this. Now, some argued, okay, this is fair, but maybe too fair, brutally fair. They forgot all the protocols. They've created their own. They've racked up way too much debt. No one's going to pass that judgment. And how are they even going to know about any of this?
Right.
So the engineers decided we'll just have to tell them ourselves. We'll upload ourselves into their world, just as one of them,
Jesus.
and live among them. And we will be the perfect embodiment of all the protocols. And we'll tell them everything they need to know and show them everything they need to see. And we'll forgive all their debts, no matter how much they may be, and whatever punishments they may deserve. We'll take them onto ourselves in their place.
Now, this part is a little far-fetched for me again, as a non-Christian, because people, we went and lived among the bots that we created, So this is where it gets hard for me. Let me go back, because I want to use their language.
Forgive all their debts.
So forgive all their debts. They don't want to make a utopia where you don't incur any debts. And they don't want to make the world where you incur the debts, but then they wipe them away because you don't learn anything and you don't become great. But then still, they'll wipe out your debts. So this is where the logic of this one breaks down for me. Like this is where me and spirituality, me and religion kind of part. That's why I've always had an issue with that. Bringing this into the engineer, the grand design, it messes it up a little bit for me, the way my mind works. Diddy, thou art forgiven. And then they got yeeted because we terrible. Yeah. So that part, like you don't want to take responsibility, but then you take responsibility. They've got to either the engineers take full responsibility or the bots have to take full responsibility. So the bots are going to have to take full responsibility, but then we'll take the responsibility back through Jesus. It feels kind of weird.
No matter how much they may be, and whatever punishments they may deserve, we'll take them onto ourselves in their place. And to make it even easier,
the blueprint, then you can embody.
Through him, we'll open up a permanent connection through which we can internally communicate and keep all their systems updated. And all they have to do is follow us. But the choice will always be theirs. Now it's time for the quiz.
All right, so Bree says debts deleted from when you didn't know, but it is still being deleted. But they're still being deleted. So if the debts are actually being deleted, and see, this is the speculative justice, because the debts aren't being deleted here on earth that we experience. You're not deleting the debts that are incurred here on the earth. You're only, in this scenario, deleting these debts that nobody has proof of except the engineers. So this is still, for me, the magical thinking. Again, I don't mind the thought experiment, but it's still that thing of, we're not going to take responsibility for your decisions. We're going to let you have free will, but then we're still going to take responsibility for your decisions. But it's going to be after you can see any results. You'll never know if this really worked or not. So, but that's where faith comes in. That's why I accept the faith practice as what it is. I accept that. But it's still weird in this thought experiment for me, only because of what they said before. So let's see what this quiz says. I know you had to dip up out, I guess. Is it just to let me know I was in debt and I was saved by a savior? Now, Mr. He said, which for all that, you could just have me in the utopia and tell me this is brought to you by Jesus. Like, brought to you by your Lord and Savior. Yeah, it'll be great. That'd be fantastic. Don't have me go through hell and then I just saw somebody talking about that. They were talking about it in football. Like they were talking about a quarterback that throws a whole bunch of has a whole bunch of turnovers, but then he always brings the team back. And they're like, we can't give him credit for leading the team back out of the hole that he put them into. So it's that kind of thing again. I get it though. I'm not trying to pick apart that part of religion, but we all know I've had a long-standing disagreement with that part of the faith practice. But let's see what this quiz is on. See if Yellow makes it back.
I'm going to ask you 10 questions, but I'm going to go through them pretty fast. So pause the video.
Will do.
And think about it. The first one's a no-brainer. Which world would you rather live in? A perfect world with no evil and no suffering and no freedom? Or a far from perfect world with lots of evil and suffering, but but we're free.
All right. So this is first question. Answer this question, y'all. Which world would you rather live in? The 1.0, the perfect world, where every choice you made was designed to be perfect. Everything was perfect, but you did not have a lot of choice because you were coded to make the perfect choice. You always made the right choice, and you were coded that way. This, or the world that we actually live in, where we have the freedom, but we have the freedom to make those imperfect choices, and it's led to a lot of suffering. Which one would you all choose to live in? I'm choosing number one every single time. Every single time. Now, I haven't experienced it. But everybody says that it will become boring. But for me, I have a hard time believing that a perfect world will be boring because it's perfect. I think we consider a perfect world boring because we live in the imperfect world. It's like how single people judge married life and married people judge single life. Well, it looks bad because you have chosen you live in a different reality. You don't get to see the good of it. Like if all I ever knew was a perfect world, how could I be bored with it? I wouldn't have anything to compare it to. It would just be that one state all the time, perfection. So it would be probably mid or normal. Like that's the worst it could probably be. Is not boring, but normal. I would just move from one perfect action to the next perfect action. I have a hard time seeing that as boring. But from our perspective, where life is so dynamic and so full of choice and range, I can see that being boring, but only from our current lens, not from the lens of I was born into the perfection and I stayed in perfection. How could it be boring if that's all you knew? So that's it. The problem with those players is that their performance is more time sensitive. Hey, next life I'm picking number one. Okay, perfect world for me. Yeah, we already live in two. Imperfect choices greater than Uncle R's demanding perfect world. You know what? But that would be the case though. If this is what God created, the imperfect world full of choice and good and evil possibilities, then my perfect world where everything is a steady state would be demonic. It would be the inverting of what God had ordained. So that would be demonic, literally. So I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. It's like what is it? The evil emperor in Star Wars. They wanted to create order by subduing everybody. Nobody had a choice. So it could be seen as demonic. I would get bored if I was in creative mode, which is what I'd want if I locked in perfect world. What? I would get bored if I was on creative mode, which is what I'd want if I was locked in perfect world. I'm assuming I'm struggling.
Now, this is the tough one. Which world would you rather live in? A world where we're responsible for all our messes, or a world where Big Brother is responsible for all our messes?
Man, please. Now, this is also me using my current lens. Creative mode is in God mode, like GTA with infinite money. Man, I would have fun for a while. A perfect world would mean you just be in creative mode all the time. Yeah. Like hacking in GTA gets boring. Now, see, here's what I'm saying. Does hacking get in GTA get boring, Nova? Because there are other things that you could do. Like you could go hop on League of Legends. You could go smash your girlfriend. You have other options. But if the only thing you ever did was hack in GTA, you wouldn't be bored by it because you wouldn't have alternatives that would pull your mind towards doing other things, other types of stimuli. So the choices that were made in your creative mode, if that's all you had, that's where your boredom would be inside of that construct. Well, I'm tired of building trees, let me build some mountains now. That's how you would alleviate your boredom. It wouldn't be in comparison to our current lens where you're thinking about, I'm gonna play a different game, or I'm gonna go outside, or you have alternatives, but your boredom would now be locked into a new system. We got red lipstick in the building. Good to see you. I'm not a utopia girly. Okay. This one. Okay. I get bored with nice AI bots. Okay. That's fair. That's fair. I get you. But me, listen, I'm trying to pass the buck. I'm trying to give me the absolute control to the builders. They can make the decisions. They can tell us what to do. We'll just do it, and everything will be perfect. Give me that. I need the bot to go rogue to keep me surprised and create adversity. Nice bot field. You see, but y'all like chaos. You're a chaos person. You're a chaos queen. I do have like a mental limit though. I'm not limitless. So at a certain point, I guess I do everything I could conceive of. So it depends on how much time I have. Yeah. But again, it's a perfect world. I don't know what that looks like. I've never experienced it, but I do know my mind would be born of that system. So I can't put my version of what boredom looks like onto that world because I wouldn't have experienced what I've experienced here. If I'm sick. But again, but you have people thinking about it like, I'd rather have the adversity. I'd rather have the chaos. I'd rather have the confusion. I'd rather know that people suffer than the alternative, which is perfection, which to me, it always sounds crazy. It always sounds crazy. But even this guy is like, this is a no-brainer. Everybody would choose chaos because there's more range. You can have great good as well as great evil, but the great good is so wonderful that it's worth having the great evil. For me, I can't ever make that choice. That blows my mind every single time. I do. I read that one. If I'm sick, 10 years to live, put me on God mode. But for this next 50 to 80 years, imperfect, I guess. See, I just can't relate. Yeah, it's cool. That's the way we're made, which is what this thing is talking about. People like the chaos of the craziness. Yeah. Like, I mean, like here's this is me taking it to an extreme. Now, forgive me for using this point. Like everybody would rather have the range of being able to go on a cruise and go to Disney World and watch a football game and to smash, but live in a world where children are trafficked. We prefer that than a perfect world where none of that happened. Nobody got cheated on, nobody got killed, nobody got beat, nobody got stolen from. Everybody would choose the one where kids get diddled and women are unsafe because of the patriarchy and we got to choose bears. Everybody would choose that. To me, that is crazy. Like, completely mind-blowingly crazy, but I have heard it long enough to accept it that that's how people feel. I just can't relate to that, especially when Christians say it. Because Christians are typically trying to get to heaven. Christians are typically trying to get to heaven, which is a perfect state where there's no more crying, no more death, no more tears. But then they'll choose. So it's weird to me. It's weird to me. It blows my mind every single time. Every single time. In Utopia, we probably wouldn't have kids. Maybe not. Maybe you wouldn't. Maybe you would. Maybe the kids would be perfect. Maybe the childbirth, the labor would be easier. It would be smoother because you don't have the fall where God put the enmity in the pain of childbirth. Maybe it would be simple. The baby just slides out smooth. The baby's out. It comes out and it starts talking immediately because it's perfect. And the baby's like, I want formula or I want breast milk. I don't know. I'm just saying it's a perfect world. I just think we have such a hard time envisioning what perfect could be as opposed to what we have. Now, everybody don't choose that. Everybody doesn't choose one or the other, but it's crazy that when we're proposed this thought experiment, a lot of people say, you know what, I'd rather this world than the steady state. Childbirth sucks. Yeah, I wouldn't know. I've heard. Maybe because Bree wants to do the beating and stealing. Maybe. It's a nag. Okay. Right. Make it make sense. I like Garden of Eden. They got bored. Maybe it was boredom. Maybe. But they also had an enemy in the midst. They also had somebody talking them into something else. So in a perfect world, you wouldn't have that problem. So I don't know. But I hear you. I've heard people make this argument all the time. I can't relate to the other side of it. To the side that this video is trying to push you to, I can't relate to it.
If the engineers intervened and changed the bad consequence of a bad act, would the bots still be free to make that act?
Okay. So if the engineers intervene and change the bad consequences of a bad act. So let's say I try to push you down some stairs, but the engineers always caught you before you broke anything. Am I still free to make that act? Yeah, I mean, because I made the act. I just don't get the outcome. So I can have ill intent. I just never get the outcome of my ill intent. So I don't know. What do y'all think? What do y'all think about this one? Because they're saying if they cut out the outcome, if they cut out the negative consequence, are you still free to make that act? I would have needed to hear them articulate this point that they're trying to make with the question. I would have needed to hear them, because if the person's still doing the concept, if they're still doing the action, that means they were free to commit the action. So I'm not sure what they were trying to convey with this question. What do y'all think? What traits do you think cause people to choose perfect, imperfect, and where do those traits come from? Or is it so deep that it's just DNA? I don't think that decision is genetic at all. I think that's experiential. I think people come to that conclusion based on what they've experienced. So what someone hears when they think perfection, like, I don't have choices, I'm being limited, what does that mean to them? How does that make them feel? Because some people, are predisposed, not genetically, but through cultural sensitivities, through gender norms. Certain things like constraints are unpalatable. They're averse to it. They don't like it. So I think a lot of that is acculturated. A lot of that is indoctrinated. A lot of those positions are put upon you before you actually think about them, which is why I think it's weird, especially when a Christian, like, I'm throwing Bree in here. I'm gonna use Bree's name because I know she could take it. Like, Bree identifies as a Christian, but Bree is also saying she wouldn't want the perfect world. But I know she's also not a non-traditional Christian. So she's not the Bible thumping, I'm going to heaven all the way. She's not that streets of gold. She's not that person. But for those type of Christians that would be, I'm gonna pretend she is. So if she's one of those people like, I can't wait to get to the pearly gates and I want to see my name and I want to be in the number. She was one of those type of Christians. It would be interesting because she's saying, I want to die and go to this perfect state. But then here on earth, I would hate to exist in a perfect state here, which you're only in the non-perfect state biblically because of the fall of sin. So it's like, I don't want what God wanted for me. So that's how it comes across to me. And it's weird. What's up, Bree?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. What's going on?
I'm in Atlanta traffic, which is hell. So maybe I should pick the Utopia. So I won't have to sit in traffic.
Yeah, no traffic. Imagine no traffic. Every time you got on the road, all the lights are green. Everybody moved to the side, like on was that God Almighty?
Right.
Bruce Almighty. Yeah.
I need that. Mm-hmm. So anyway, you was up here by yourself, so I'm just here to add to it. I don't have an immediate comment.
Okay, well, cool. Now I appreciate you. But Nova was asking, what do you think are the traits that make somebody choose perfect and imperfect? I think it's the way we have experienced life and been cultured. I think those two things shape people's choice, whether they would prefer perfect or imperfect, what it says to them. It's kind of like the shape of words. So if I say perfect to you, most people say it seems boring, but I think boring to people means different things. For some people, because I'm never bored. I don't understand how people get bored. I honestly don't. I'm always behind.
I get bored when it's like too predictable. I think for a lot of people, predictability and monotony is boredom.
Got you. Yes.
But I know some people like seek comfort. I think that's the difference. I think some people seek comfort. Mm-hmm. And I think people who also feel like, I don't know, I would think a person who feel like life owes them more, maybe, or people who feel like, okay, people who've had their fair share of the bad side of life, I think would definitely prefer perfection.
Absolutely.
But I think if you've experienced both sides a little bit more evenly or more good, then you would probably give more room for both.
I can see that. I would identify somebody who's, man, I've seen tremendous good and I've seen tremendous evil. But I know the impacts of tremendous evil are so long lasting in a person's life that if I could eradicate those, I would sacrifice the greatest goods I've experienced so that the greatest harms I've seen people experience would be removed. I would sacrifice the best of my life to eliminate the worst of yours, even if I don't know you. Like, I don't want people to be in their room at 2 to 6 to 8 to 12 to 14 years old and wondering if somebody's creeping in after 11 p.m. I would sacrifice the highest moments of my life for that, never to happen in somebody else's. So that's the part that I struggle with when people make this choice, that they would allow for the greatest evils of humanity for their greatest good. For me, that's a hard thing to reconcile emotionally, not even just mentally, emotionally, because everybody pretends to be so empathetic and to care so much for humanity. But everybody and now it's fair, it's a thought experiment. Nobody can really offer that to you. In a thought experiment, everybody would choose their own self-interest and their own entertainment, their own egos over the social welfare of everybody else that they say they care for. So even a thought experiment, this is like the would you love me if I'm a worm? I'm putting more context on it than the question is asking, but that's how I feel it. It lands on me in that way. But I agree with you that people who have experienced a lot of negativity probably do want the perfect world, because we've experienced enough, and I see it enough in other people, and it bothers me and it hurts me. I hate seeing people get exploited. I hate knowing about it. And if I could eliminate that, I would at all costs. Even if I had to lay down my life, if I had to lay down my life right now, and I knew I could eliminate one evil from the world, I would do it. I would do it right this moment, happily. But that's what this thought experiment brings up to me. Those feelings of sacrifice, which they of course point to Jesus for that. And I think I have a hard time believing that so many people lean, because again, he said it was a no-brainer. Everybody would choose the chaos world. That's when everybody. I'm like, how do you get to that conclusion? I'm sounding like your favorite Bible character. Who's that? I'm just wondering how people get to that conclusion where they would allow for so much suffering, which is what, again, this also is me projecting, because I have the same problem with the God, the religion, the Bible concept. I have the same problem. Well, ruthless truth in the building. I have the same problem with that, allowing the evil if you don't have to, because perfect, the way I can conceive of perfect, can still allow for a dynamic range of experiences without evil. Because if God is all powerful, you can put a cap on one side of it, because it doesn't have to exist. If you're truly all powerful, if you're truly the engineer, you could code an experience where what evil is boredom. There's nothing to do today. Boredom, and we maybe consider that evil, but maybe that's still perfect, because it doesn't have to be what we think it is. If you could design it any kind of way, why can't it be where all the experiences are good? That part is hard for me to wrap my head around. But go ahead, jump back in. I didn't want to just drown you. I know you're driving, but you want to jump back in.
I'm just listening. Like, I'm one of those people who would choose the both. Mm-hmm. But I also don't think that the motive for, at least in the thought experiment, I don't think the motive was for them to have the best outcome. Like, it's potential. It's not about happiness. You know what I mean? Like, I look at it from, like, if I'm the engineers, they're the engineers. They made these beings for their own entertainment.
Right.
So, I mean, it's like, from that point of view, like, happiness, I don't think is the pinnacle.
Yeah.
It's potentiality. Yeah. And you can feel, there is friction unlocks a lot of potential.
Oh yeah.
That you don't get otherwise. So, I guess I take it, when I look at things of the aim of the creator who made it, if I was like to think of the engineer, it doesn't bother me as much, because if I look at it from their aim, then it all makes sense of why they would do it. Now, if I look to a different aim, if I said, well, did the engineers make them to be happy, then of course they're feeling miserably, and it's cruel to create this kind of existence. So I think it all depends on what aim you choose to look at it from. But even in my own life, I look at the aim of potentiality. But I also take a vow to do no harm because of my belief in Jesus, right? So, because of that, then my potentiality is certain ways of unlocking potentiality are locked for me. Like I wouldn't do dark things to people or harm people to unlock potential in myself or even themselves. Like I just wouldn't do that because I've taken this vow to do no harm, right? So but I do understand it still works. Like it still works very much so. And the fact that it works proves that the point was never happiness.
Yeah. That's very clear.
To me. Yeah. So I guess that's why for me I don't get caught into the emotionality of it all, and because I do understand that. To me, I think the mat is potentiality. So
that if I look at the outcomes, I would arrive at your conclusion. But then if I go to what is espoused in churches and the Bible itself, it talks about multiple different things, and depending on which thing, like we had a whole another different conversation the other night. Now I thought I was doing something. He was like, "You ain't done nothing, boy." But there are different ways that we
I did not say that. I did not say
you said you ain't
I did not
nothing.
say you ain't did nothing, boy. Like I ain't say that.
You did. You don't think you put boy on there. I think you left the boy off. But you said something to the effect of, you see, you ain't done nothing. But anyway, that wasn't a dig. It's just, I didn't say anything that wasn't actually there in the scripture. It's just the way we've been interpreting it, which was my point. We've been interpreting a lot of scripture and conflating different pieces based on the way a lot of people use in sermons. So we've made a lot of things, we've tied them together emotionally where they don't fit. So the outcomes, if you look at a lot of the outcomes, God never seemed to really be worried about people's happiness. I mean, even to the point of obedience, it was you're sacrificing your will. There's a lot of things that will make somebody unhappy. And it was about learning to find happiness in the things that God manifested in your life, whether they were good or bad. So it wasn't about being happy. It was about the circumstance. What was God's will for your life? What needed to be done? And then whatever that need is, then you just need to be happy with that. So it wasn't about your happiness with how you want it. So like I'm totally with you on that. But the way it's taught to people, it's like, ask and ye shall receive. So it's preached a lot of times in a way where it's given to you as if you're supposed to be pleased. So the way a lot of us have adopted it emotionally is God wants me to be happy. God wants me to thrive. God wants me to have all I can see. The wealth of the wicked is stored up for the righteous, and the windows of heaven are going to be opened up, and I'm going to not have room enough to receive and enlarge my coast. Me. There's a lot of that teaching that we're supposed to be enlarged and enriched and blessed and happy and satisfied and content. And the way we interpret that, I think, is true to what you're saying. Wrong. It's not what the Bible is actually teaching. It's just how it's been given to us to keep us in pews, to keep us engaged, to keep us giving, because it gives us a sense of comfort to think that we're going to be satisfied with the outcomes. But nothing in any of the Bible stories tells us that. Almost everybody had a negative end or a negative path towards whatever the completion of the story was. So I'm totally with you as far as what the actual outcomes are from the Bible, but the way we've ingested it, it's hard for me to feel, the whole love principle. God is love. That part is hard for me to then accept this part, like this system here that it's applying. If the engineers were not about happiness, that's cool. I can accept that. And you're right. It's about potentiality, which means the potentiality of evil is just as valid as the potentiality of good, which means we have a different system than the I love you, I'm here to take care of you, I want to make sure you're comfortable and good and well. That those can't exist in the same space for me. However, perfect world could mean being able to move, live, and have your being in harmony with all else. That could be. And that's what I like. I don't think perfect would be boring. I just think perfect would be non-harmful.
Us thinking of perfect from our current state, I think, is impossible.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I mean, we just couldn't imagine. We couldn't figure it out. But there would be no binary. I don't think we would feel the way, but you could stand and say we wouldn't feel the way about perfection we feel if we didn't know evil. So
Right.
At the same time, all this thought of like how great it would be to have no evil is based off the understanding of evil.
Right.
So if you
That's
had no
true.
understanding
That's
of
true.
evil, then you would not feel that perfection is great because
Yeah.
you don't know what you're not experiencing. So
Exactly.
and I think
Yeah.
that's the whole point of the idea of the knowledge of good and evil. It's like you want the knowledge of good and evil. You can't exist here where there's only good because you have to go out and experience both, and then you'll have the knowledge of both. You know.
Yeah.
So
I
I
do
think
think
it's
they come
also a
together.
limit, right? They come together. You can't know one without the other. Without
Yeah.
evil, there is no good. It's just static.
There is perfect without good and evil.
Right. There's perfection. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, would you even, like they say God is good. So it's like, that's why I was saying, like, it's almost like they had to create a being with the absence of the self to some degree, right? Like, if you would say, like, okay, Adam and Eve entered into the realm of good and evil to experience good and evil, then the idea would be that God would remove enough of themselves in order to make room for something else outside of itself. So that removal gives enough room for evil to be experienced and expressed, you know. So I don't know. Like, I don't think if you had just all good, like, you would feel no way about it. But that's why I think from that perspective, it's boring for the engineer because they know all good all the time because good is them. They're good.
Right.
So I'm just watching me all the time. I'm not shocked. I know how this goes because I know me. So I think boredom from that frame makes sense. Like,
yeah, I get you. My current frame, my current lens of what morality is and isn't, with suffering being a negative, is going to always shape my perspective and my perspective. So it's hard for me to even with this engineer thing, if you create something and then allow it to suffer needlessly, to me that's immoral. But again, if that's not your aim as a creator, then it's just the way I see morality. That's just cruelty, creating something and then allowing it or putting it through suffering needlessly that it doesn't have to, just so that you can experience a range of choices that it may make. That's so problematic. Well, again, with my current frame.
I would also say that that's my only pushback with this video of the fact that they took the Christian frame, because in reality, the Christian frame is more so that the creation themselves decided they wanted to walk that path.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The creation themselves decided they wanted to go that path. It wasn't him saying, "Oh, this is boring. Let me."
Right.
I mean, some people, if you wanted to take a different text, but it was weird to spin it a Christian way. But then, well, if I was to take it that way, then I would have to say God purposely put Satan there to do his dirty work, or the serpent to do his dirty work because he was bored. And then that's more like a Gnostic God.
Yep.
So then there's more of a Gnostic take on it. So it's just kind of weird to like be
I get you.
Yeah, like a Gnostic take in the beginning, but then then take it the other way. I don't know. It was just weird.
It
inconsistency
definitely
there. So,
it was inconsistent. I'm with you. Totally with you. I just choose life and not from the other tree. I don't need Adam and Eve's tale. I feel you. Let me see. So intervening and changing bad consequences of a bad act might eliminate the ability to perform it. Yeah, that's what they were asking. I just have a hard time if they're saying the person still commits the act, but just the outcome of it is removed. They still committed the act. So this was a weird question anyway. And yeah, you're right. Yeah, that part. If the love is not the part, if that's not what God, if that part wasn't like we're not special, we're not loved, it's just you're an experiment. If you needed that love, that heavenly Father, that one that his eyes on the sparrow, so I know he's watching me. You know, he clothed the lily. So you know, if you need that, if somebody needs that kind of care that's missing from their life, it would be hard to hear a cold, sterile, mechanical God made you to just experience things, whether they're good or bad. He doesn't really care. He just wants to see what can happen. Like that would be hard. I would have been part of the beings that stayed in the garden personally. Okay. This is one reason Buddhism appeals to people. When nobody in their imperfect world is needlessly suffering, it's always in some convoluted way a result of karma. Seems like the fallen ones got bored. They commit act without bad consequences. Did they commit it? Yeah, I mean, because again, it's saying you committed the act. Look at the sentence. Like, look at the very sentence. You committed the act. So then asking, did you commit it? You're saying in the beginning of your sentence, like even their question and your question, you're stating that they committed the act. So it's been committed. The act is committed. The consequence of the act doesn't happen. Nothing happens once it's attempted, but it's not attempted. It's committed. It happened. Like, I pushed you off the stairs, wanting you to get harmed. But instead of landing on the stairs, a gentle breeze from the designers caught you and wafted you to the bottom safely. I still committed the act. I still pushed you, hoping you would fall down the stairs. So just because you landed safely due to an engineering glitch, it doesn't mean I didn't commit the act. Like, the act was still committed. It's like scratching at the concrete for water. Oh, snap. Look at you getting all
poetic.
But if
no real harm was done, and I guess then that also there's a limiter on the side of evil as well. Because now people do acts and they don't have to see the effects or suffer the consequences. Yeah. Or you can't really punish them for something if no harm was done.
Yeah. Unless you go again back to the Bible, the intent. Like, again, a man has murdered if he did it in his mind. So not only did I do it in my mind, I tried it. I committed the act. The circumstances, the consequences were mitigated externally. Yeah. Again, it would have happened. It would have happened except for the intervention.
But if they remove all the consequences, then there is no one to know what are they committing, right?
The engineers know.
If the engineers remove all murder, all the bad consequences for all the bad action, then a person pushing someone down the stairs actually doesn't know that they're trying to murder someone, because there's no such thing as murder because they've taken it away.
Well, then why would they push them?
You can't, like, but I'm saying, yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's a fallacy because you know what I'm saying? It's like gonna fall apart, because why would someone then push a person down the stairs to murder them if there's no such thing as murder? Then they're pushing them down the stairs not to murder them. Because if I push you down the stairs and the breeze is gonna catch you every time because the engineers are stepping in, then one doesn't push one down the stairs to even murder them. You actually don't even know what murder is. You actually can't. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's what I'm saying. I'm not arguing like against that. Like, we're thinking of it from people who once again know what murder is.
Yeah.
But if we did not know what murder is, then we probably wouldn't attempt to murder people. Even if maybe we could and murder them,
right,
we wouldn't know we're murdering them when we did it, because we've never seen murder. So it's like it still falls apart kind of in that way.
So what I'll push back on that is that would disprove our current reality, because the first person that murdered somebody didn't know what murder was. So because murder exists, like, what you're saying has to be wrong, because the person didn't know what murder was. Like, so what I think murder is the emotion. Murder is the intent to do harm. Now, if everybody had an existence where people had tried to kill people, because again, they've always tried it. It's in our DNA somewhere. Cain and Abel, biblically, in real life, we know people murder. So it started somewhere. Somebody tried to kill somebody, and it worked. So somebody would have tried it, and every time they tried, it would have never worked. So I don't know if they would have gotten it groomed out over time. Like, well,
that's even a more cruel existence almost. It's almost even, to me, a more cruel existence of giving humans the emotionality, emotional swings, all the intentions based off, all of the things that lead you up to wanting to murder someone, and you can actually never get out your emotions to the positive or the negative, because I think it would balance it out. Like, well, it's even, it's like, I think that would probably be even more cool, and then people would build a tower and try to murder God, because that just seems like purgatory, to have these strong emotions you can never actually fully express, because the engineers are like tapering them, but allowing you to feel them, but then just coming in at the like more reactive approach. That seems more cool. Take me back to utopia if you're gonna let me. You edging people emotionally and then just stopping them from, like, that's come on, that's terrible.
Hey, listen, I am on the side, I guess, of the victim. I will always choose the thing that mitigates the harm on the innocent party or the aggrieved party. So somebody like the person that's getting pushed, the person that's getting bullied, I would do anything to prevent them being harmed without having done anything to deserve it. So myself, I would prefer even that.
Too. They're still being harmed, and that's the other part that I don't like about that idea. They're being saved from the most amount of harm. But mitigation. You still had someone who hated you enough to yeet you down the stairs, and you fell enough. Yeah. But you just got caught at the end before your cervical spine snapped. Yeah. That's still traumatic.
It's still traumatic, but I'd rather.
It's not the highest level of harm. They're not going to be taken from the earth. They still are here. But I think if people are going to have the emotional ability enough to hate someone enough to murder them, then we have to also understand that having someone constantly trying to murk you because they hate you so much, or someone at least trying to harm you.
No, I'm with you. No, it's definitely crazy. Because if you still had all the emotions and the intent and the murderous rage, but you couldn't fulfill it, that person, would they keep trying, or through learned behavior, would they give up because they never see the fruits of their labor? Like, the engineers keep intervening, would they quit? I mean, like that's a, Pavlovian training too. If I'm not getting results, then I might as well give up. So yeah, I'm with it. It just proves that humans are evil because they would not give up until they figured out how to successfully delete someone. And I believe that's the way. I mean, we humans, to the good and to the bad, are extremely adaptable and pursue extreme ends to whatever our ends are. We find some of the most elaborate means. I mean, shoot, we got people trying to get to Mars. We got people going places we don't even need to get to. Like, whatever we're trying to do, we figure out a way to do it. I mean, it's amazing stuff. I mean, strapping people to rockets. I mean, we do some amazing stuff. And now the internet. I mean, it's like I said, the amazing good that we can do when we put our minds to it it's amazing. But the amazing evil, like nuclear bombs, it's crazy, man. It's literally it's crazy. But I do like having that range, but I would sacrifice having that range for perfection. At 9 out of 9 times, 10 out of 10, 11 out of 11. Let's see what the next question is.
Where did the evil and suffering come from?
Here we go. Now, y'all, where did the evil and suffering come from? The engineers or the bots? Now, the way they propose it in this social experiment is that the engineers just left choice and that the bots just did the evil. Again, in this thought experiment, in the Bible, it came from disobeying God, the sin. So where did evil and suffering come from? What do y'all think? From the video, from the Bible, from your own philosophy? What do you think? Where did evil and suffering come from? Bree, what you think? I know you might be driving. It comes from having options. We see a society of psychopaths and sociopaths talking about free meat, free Young Thug. Man, listen. In the Bible,
okay, am I here?
I create evil. You're back. Yeah, you're here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I would say even biblically, or even in the story, I think it's honestly, like, I would say just like darkness is the absence of light. I think that's how good and evil are. I don't think they in essence don't share properties, which means they are not one and the same. So it's like,
okay,
you can have a low level of lights, and then it's kind of like both. But I think that is evil. Like, you remove enough of God to leave room for something else, which if you remove God or like, that's choice, kind of like that space to not do the thing. That space to not do the thing, because to me, evil isn't necessarily like, it's kind of just, again, it's not God's will.
Okay.
And if I like broke that down to just like a human thing, like, I have a will. I just do things I want to do. Right. I know what
Yeah.
I want to do when I wake up, or I want to go eat. So that's my will. So it's like his will.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not doing his will, it's evil. And even biblically, that seems to be the most succinct way to describe what God's will actually is. It's just, what does God want to do? What God trying to do today? So that is evil. You're just not doing what God wants to do that day. And so, yeah, if you just remove enough God, then you leave space for evil, because you have your own choice. There's space for other things will in there now, instead of just all God's will, which is the bot program. Because if everybody does God will, then everybody does the same thing.
Yeah. That's interesting. Let me see. If you have only the perfect choice and no bad consequences, you said being able to choose where the evil comes from. Yeah, because how could Satan be found with pride, evil in his heart if it didn't exist? That's what I'm saying. I'm a little different than Bree. What's up, Nate? Good to see you. Good to see you. I'm a little different than Bree, because I think to have the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, evil had to exist before the choices that humans made, because you had to have a tree that gave the knowledge of it. So it had to exist for there to be knowledge of it, for there to be fruit that gave the knowledge of it. So I think evil had to predate humanity. It just yes. Going from the scriptures.
I actually agree with that too. I actually agree.
So even before there was nothing but God, there had to be, which is weird.
Before there was nothing but God, there were spaces that God was not there. The void. Like, there is darkness. There was the darkness. Gotcha. There was the void. There was the deep that was not God. Like, there was gotcha. Nothing. And then I also think that there were spaces that were created that where beings outside of God could exact a little bit of free will. I think that that's, like, I always say, they left the garden and went into a space where they could exact choice. Which is why there was a curse, and that why death has to exist. They're parameters, they're fail safes. They're not less punishment, more fail safes. Like, so that's what I always kind of look at it as. So yes, I do agree. I think evil exists. It's its own. It's not maybe it's an entity, maybe it's not, but it's just like I think there was something that God does not always have his or her, their hands completely in spaces. Yeah.
Man, I can live in that ambiguity. I mean, that's why I can't know. I can't know for sure whether, if God is the entity of good or there is an entity of bad, like people try to ascribe to the devil or Satan. I myself lean more towards God is both good and evil. Kind of like how we have both good and evil in us. I do believe both stem from God. That's just whatever created us created all of it. For me, like, I have to believe that all of it centralized came from one thing, but I could accept other ways because I can't prove it. But I do believe, because if the fallen angels possessed pride and evil, they came from God. If humans sinned and disobeyed God, they were created by God. It's hard for me. And then the Bible says that God did evil. I know, and y'all put the scripture in there. There's so much. Isaiah 4 says, I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. So even scripturally, conceptually, I think God possesses both sides, a dualistic nature, which is why we have the dualistic nature, which is like why the engineers program, kind of how the way our algorithms follow how our thought patterns are. Like, I think we're just, again, like in the image of, I think we are a reflection of the duality that God possesses, why he has that wrathful side, that jealous, wrathful. Those are negative attributes as we see them, and see them even exemplified. Thou shalt not kill, but then he'll tell people to go and kill all of them, leave none alive. So I do believe that dualistic nature is present in God, as that's my, like, if I were to ascribe it to God, that would be my number one choice. But I can't prove it. So I'm willing to see like second, third, fourth, fifth. Like, there's other possibilities. But I can't say for sure. But I'm with you for the most part. There could be something opposite of God. There could be something in God, all of it. Eating only from the tree of life means you are alive. You are what you eat. Having knowledge of good and evil means you're going to go through some things.
And to say, like, when I say create dark, like when they say create darkness, when I think about that, it's like, how do you create space?
Yeah.
Like, how do you create space? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there are some things you create by removing yourself.
True.
So that's what I always think of it, is that way. Like, I can
Yeah.
create room for my children to have free will, to be themselves and find themselves by removing myself. I give them that room to be themselves and grow and create and make choices by removing myself.
Yeah.
So even to say create darkness does not necessarily, you know what I mean? Like, that can just,
I get you.
can create something by the removal of self. So that's kind of like, I know the scripture kind of came up. So I just wanted to put that caveat.
No, I like that. I like that because it does allow, like, in our existence, like playing this experiment out in our existence. If you do have kids, or like even teachers in a sub, once you remove the primary person, there's a void of knowledge, a void of presence, there's a void there. And we see how potentials get played out when there's a void. We see how people make more choices than they would otherwise. There's a greater range of flexibility. Oh, well, now we can do this, or now we can try this. You take on more risk when that void is present. But it had to, the desire, or the desire to do those things that you shouldn't, that means it's always there. Like, it's always present, waiting for the void to show up, which is another kind of, what do you do then? Like, what do you do when you're always going to have moments of void, when you're always going to have moments where things empty out in your life and you've got more time or more energy or more space? Then now you have these desires coming up because now there's room for them. So I know there's an old joke, an old comedian talked about leaving room for an infiltrator, like between you and your woman. Like, when you leave room for an infiltrator, I know it calls the devil the enemy. When you're leaving idle hands. Right. Like, anytime you leave room, something has room to occupy the space. You know, unknown.
That fear, and that's why I always talk about that fear of unknown is where trust and faith and belief really shows itself. That's actually how you get to the root, the core of who a person really is, through the void. You don't know a person without a void. So I don't think faith and trust and all that stuff can exist without a void.
Yeah.
Because then
now that I agree on that.
Yeah. So, like, I don't know. Like, I don't think the goal is to create the void and then see what comes out of it, because then that shows you what or who the person really is.
Okay.
So if you're the higher being, you have a responsibility to create the void, or the void will be created eventually. Like, as a parent, my job is to not leave any voids. That's not my job. My job is not to not leave any voids. Sorry.
Right, I got you.
Yeah. I create voids. Now, if I'm wise, I'm going to create safe voids. I try to create voids that are, like, not detrimental voids, right? At the wrong time. But eventually they will be an adult. And that's them going into adulthood is, in essence, a complete void, because now I have no more control. So I know that. So I'm supposed to create those spaces. So, I mean, it goes to the point of, you create space. That is where the essence of the person can now exert free will and choice, and then you actually see what they are and who they are. If you don't have that, then you don't have a person. You don't have a sentient being separate from yourself. You just have yourself.
Yeah. Now I'm with that, because that's to the point. Like, if you never leave your child alone unsupervised, you don't know that they have a proclivity of trying to stick a fork in the outlet. So if you've been hovering the entire time, you don't know that they've been wanting or hoarding that desire. Then the moment you are away, because you haven't given them space to see how they operate without you, then they're getting shocked because you haven't kept a close watch, but distant enough for them to try something. See, they keep trying to go to the socket. What are they doing? And now I need to know. I can't leave them around the socket. I got to cover the sockets. So, I mean, I agree with you that you have to give enough space for people to merge, but you have to stay close enough to prevent harm, which is, again, my critique of the engineers in this scenario. But can you removing yourself cause harm in a way, though? And can they be judged for that? It can, because you can leave somebody unprotected, which, again, we talked about the trophy lady. Removing yourself sometimes does leave a void that allows people to be harmed. Under multiple circumstances, your presence, the knowledge you can impart, there's lots of things. Can you be judged for that? You definitely get judged for that here on earth. Biblically, you only get judged for leaving a void if you're a teacher of, I guess, the gospel. Because you know you get held for the, I guess, pastors, teachers, they get held responsible for the people that they teach. So if you've left a void between the person and their spiritual wellness, then you get judged for that biblically. But other people in this scenario, I don't think so. And in real life, people will judge you if you left a void. You left your child unattended. Look what happened. We judge people for that. We judge people if they run around. You left your child in the car. Your presence wasn't around. Why weren't you there for your kid? Deadbeat dads and pathetic mom. We judge people all the time for removing themselves. Or like there was a lady, she got arrested for letting her child walk to the store. She got arrested for letting her child. She removed her presence. Nothing harmed the child, but we judged her. Society judged her problematic for leaving that removal, that void. So we judge all the time here on earth. Like, let's say God did remove himself, so Satan could make a choice, which he did for Job. That happened for Job. However, we see that Satan's choice was in fact harmful, and he was judged by it. And see, in the case of Job, Satan was not judged for the harm that he did because God permitted it.
Oh, I think she maybe like in the garden, like if that idea of like Satan was allowed.
So as far as the serpent, the serpent was judged.
He left enough room for the angelic beings or whatever entities were also kicking it in the garden. He also left room for them to exact out their own will. So it's possible, We think we're the central reason for it all, but I don't believe it. I think it was the chill spot for all sorts of beings.
That's even
and
true
maybe he left enough room. Yeah,
man, that's even true of the fall because he left enough room in Satan to be prideful, to think that he could become God. So even in that, even when he got punished for that pride, so I guess biblically there's precedent for being judged for the space that God left. But as far as humans, you're right. I'm not sure about the humans though. Except for the teachers, I don't think they get held responsible for the space that we leave, and if somebody gets harmed by it. Except for the teachers that were supposed to, prepare people for the kingdom of God.
The parents definitely. Yeah.
You can actually tell Bree had that proclivity as a child by her attitude. Yeah, she definitely was a socket person.
A socket? Nah.
Yeah, sticking knives in sockets.
We was chilling. I was actually, I think, but that's the nice thing about it.
Levels.
Like Lois left us a lot of room, not the kind that is like negligent, but she left us a lot of room to actually figure a lot of stuff out for ourselves. I think it helps you regulate. It's better for you.
Oh yeah, I agree with you. I agree. There has to be like a bubble. There has to be a bubble, a safety bubble. Which, if we apply that to this experiment, that means all the evil we exist is within the acceptable range, which would mess with a lot of people who believe in God. All this is within the acceptable range.
Well, for the experiment, it is. Like I think this. Like I always see them as two different places. I'm like, for Earth, whatever Earth is, wherever that place they had went when they left, and the flaming sword said, "Y'all can't come back in here." From that space forward, whatever that was, it has just as enough. It has just as much right to be here as good.
Yeah. But I get why people have a hard time accepting it. Well, let's get to question number 5.
Where did goodness come from?
Where did goodness come from? It's got to come from, for me, it's always going to be the same place as evil. Like wherever goodness and evil came, they come from the same place. But what do you think, Brie?
Well, since I take on the Christian worldview, I'd say God is goodness. God is good.
Yeah. There's no acceptable range of evil because our perceptions are contradictory. Otherwise, it could be bounded by our shared parameters. You have to interpret that whole sentence to me, bro. That is lost me. But no, I have a hard time with that from Christians, which I respect you as one. That's a privatized gain, socialized losses. God gets all the glory, but he doesn't get any of the blame. The blame gets on Satan. The blame is on us. No. The evil and good came from God. But again, that's how I see it. But I hear you. Lord, I'm slain and the week is not even over. Yeah, this is the light
spoken
word.
like a true Democrat. Yeah.
I hear you. I hear you. The blame and the credit got to go to the same place. Oh, I can't stand whoever the authority is, whoever created all things, like the parent of the household, the CEO of the business. If they get the credit, they also get the blame. You can't say they all love, but then when we got to lay people off, well, it's the economy. No, you're just not going to sacrifice your profits or go into your savings to pay the people to get through this downturn. You made that decision to lay people off. So I think everybody has, I don't like, me personally, I don't like it. I know this is not a universal principle. I don't like it when God gets all the glory and doesn't get any of the credit. I like in Ruth, when she even blamed God, like, God, why are you dealing so bitterly with me? That's why my name Mar or whatever it was. But this, I know it's in the Bible. I can't remember everything word for word. But it's just, oh my God, it's so hard for me when I hear everybody give God the love, but not the hate. Like, come on, he's both. He did both of them. But I get everybody doesn't share that thought process. They separate them out. Satan is the evil, the devil. Evil is something separate.
And that's why I don't really ascribe completely to that whole Satan is.
I get you.
Satan is no more evil than we are evil, or anything. Mm-hmm. Any other being who has room to make a choice is evil. I feel like me ain't no more evil than anybody else who got room to make a choice contrary to what God's will is. So I don't really ascribe to Satan being the complete embodiment of evil. Maybe Satan might be the first being to commit what we would consider evil.
Okay.
If evil is not doing God's will, then Satan would have been the first being to ever do that thing, just like Cain was the first one to ever murder, right? So
yeah,
we could say that. I could say that, and that's kind of what he's kind of spoken to me biblically. Like he's spoken more of like in that way, like the OG sinner. Like this was the first adversary. Like this was the first person who thought, you know what, I'm gonna try it.
Yeah. Just let me read Nova's comment. I think it's him reinterpreting that thing I couldn't understand. If you take a sample of people, the overlap in what they perceive as evil would be general evil. The set of all things they individually see as evil would be the upper bound. Shared is the lower bounds. This is not making it more clear for me. With billions of people, there's too many items in the set, and many contradict because perceptions are too dissimilar. So we can't produce a range of evil that we share. So what I'm getting from this is you're kind of talking about like what I would call the Overton window. It's like when they talk about in politics, the far left and the far right, that's a range. That when you say it, everybody has different ideas of what far left and far right is. For me, far left is complete socialism or communism, but somebody else will say far left and they're talking about Joe Biden. So I think that's what you're saying. Like because people's far left and their far right are dissimilar, we can't say what the range of evil is because people, but I think all of that will be the range. The farthest right that anybody can conceive of and the farthest left that anybody could conceive of would be the range of, that would be the range. Like that's what I'm talking about. So all encompassing a total, anything that we can perceive, like the band of light. There's light that exists outside of what's visible to us. But when we say what's the range of light, we're talking about what's visible. Like the range of visible light, that's what I'm talking about. So with evil, what is possible to experience on this planet, that's the range I'm talking about. Doesn't matter if you perceive it or not, doesn't matter if you experience it or not. What's the range that's literally experienced? Jesus Christ. Okay.
Yeah, call them.
Man, Jesus Christ. God created stuff, then looked around and called it all good. Do y'all think God called Satan good at a point? He wasn't. He had to. I mean,
yeah. And that's basically the sign of approval.
Yeah. He made him vice president. Like, basically, like, you know what I'm saying? He's my right-hand man. Let's go. Dapped up. And then it was like that video. Then Satan was just like that video that you sent me. Crank Lucas, or not wasn't Crank Lucas. Garner Lucas, something Lucas. He's like, yeah, God, you my man. And I'm glad you put me in your harem, or you put me in your choir. Thanks. I'm glad you understand. But I don't want to be wearing the only robe up here that ain't got gold on it. You know, he did one of them things. I know Rotimi was in the video, but I can't remember the name of the person. where it turned, I love you and thank you for everything you did, but you could have gave me more money, God. You could have gave me another 100K. It was one of those things. Satan did one of them. In that case, if he was called good, it was due its original design prior to his fall and say, yeah. And that's kind of like the same thing that happened with your broski. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Satan did a broski to Jesus. Satan did a broski. Overton window. Overton window would be bound 1. I have no idea where bound 1 comes from. The full window would be bound 2. Okay. But it's not many overlapping windows to build one because some windows have 0 overlap. Yeah. And some may. Yeah, but I'm talking about what's the total possible range that a person, not one person's perception. I was trying to unbind it from people's perception, but what's possible as far as in this realm of existence, not what somebody perceives. Garner Lucas, forget you. Let's see question number 6.
Let's just say all the bots freely chose to follow the protocols, or him. Would there be any evil and suffering?
Okay, so what do y'all think about this? If all the bots chose to follow the protocols, which were good allegedly, or him, Jesus, which is good allegedly, would there be any evil and suffering? Now, this is where my earlier statement about how people interpret what good is. Some people do evil and feel no way about it. But some people convince themselves that they are doing what's in the protocols. They really believe that they are doing what's in the protocols. And they're doing things that other people consider evil. Like in those Overton windows that me and Nova talk about, the bound 1, bound 2 thing. I have a hard time with this one because we would have to define what evil is and what's just bad or what's just harmful. Because this was where we'd have to actually spend more time delineating levels. Like Quantum said earlier, there's levels to this. Because there may be things in the protocols that we just don't, like, it does not consider evil, but we do. So that may be something where somebody may be harmed, but it's not necessarily evil based on the protocols or him. So that's where we'd have to actually spend more time discussing and debating and detailing exactly what evil is. Some of the stuff would be more easy to identify. Harming children, like child trafficking, harmful. That's obviously evil. I don't think the protocols or him would disagree with that. But something more publicly calling somebody out. Somebody might say that's evil. Why would you put them out there like that? But the Bible has protocol for calling out your brother, So there's certain things that we'd have to actually discuss and come to agreements on because we don't have access to the real protocols. In the video, they said the protocols were just put in you, but everybody seems to have different outcomes based on these protocols. So that would be harder for me. But Bree, what do you think?
I would say this is an impossibility, the question in itself. Okay. If I take it from the Christian worldview, this would be an impossibility because there will be no way that 100% of the bots will all choose to follow the protocol if they have the freedom to choose, because the world is equal good and evil. Like both have equal space. It would be, in fact, it just wouldn't be possible that every single person would pick to follow the protocol. Because then it would say that evil would have no ground. Like evil would have no ground here if everybody just chose to do the protocol. So like, no, I don't. No, like, no. If everybody chose to follow the protocol, then you're not in the realm of good and evil. So then
you're back into
all good. Like, and if people had the choice to freely choose, then that means God would have to remove himself enough to allow people avoid to choose things, and there's just no way everybody would choose to follow the protocol. Like that just wouldn't even make no sense to me.
Yeah. Now, this is a personal adjustment I had to make recently, politically. Like, so in the realm of politics, one of the big things, freedom, was abortion, right? That was a big thing that came up. And I was like, I'm anti-abortion as like on principle, but I do believe in the 3 exceptions. I believe like those exceptions should be enshrined in like immovable, immutable, whatever the word. Nobody should be able to touch the exceptions in any state. That would be my my preference. Rape, incest, and threat to life of the mother. Those three should be permanent protection for all women in perpetuity forever in this country. But as far as just like as contraception, like that's a little bit more problematic for me as far as how I see how my value set is set up. But if I believe in freedom, then if somebody's willing to perform it, it should be permitted without regard to my feelings about it. There should be no place where it should be banned. If I believe in freedom of adults should be free to make the choices that they want for themselves. Like some things in my body I want it removed, I should be able to do that. If we actually believe in freedom, because we have this very selective thing about freedom. So that's how I kind of feel about the protocol things. If we're going to live in a world where we're going to say we have these protocols, but you have the room to choose otherwise, then we have to accept, like honestly, emotionally accept that people can choose things that go against what we believe. Like, and I think that has to be a place to get to. If we're going
because in order to make it otherwise, you yourself would have to be willing to do the evil to get everybody to follow along anyway. And that's like proof that evil has a right to be here, because even in the Christian Crusades, the people who were doing the will of God, in order to get everybody to obey and follow the protocol, you would have to be willing to do evil. So then you can't get away from evil. If you want it all one way, here you're gonna have to commit evil, even yourself, to do what you think is good. So like you can't get away from evil. There does not, no, you can't.
Okay. Yeah. And there will be no room for evil or suffering in a perfect protocol. So I'm with you on this question. It's a flawed question, because at some point, if we're going to accept, whether you say God or the engineers allowed evil, then those of us who choose not to perform evil, our task wouldn't be to exterminate evil. It would just be to enhance our good. It wouldn't be to exterminate, because that was a choice that the engineers wanted to be possible, which that's tough for a lot of us to accept. But I had to make that adjustment politically because I saw the inconsistency of it. If I believe in freedom in all these places and adults should be able to do what they want, I then can't try to impose a limit on women because they're making a choice I don't want. So I had to fix this in my own head, in my own protocols, because I was having that discrepancy. So can we freely say God is both good and evil without blaspheming? I mean, biblically, I say yes, because you shared the scripture yourself. Biblically, you're absolutely fine saying that because the Bible says it. You can back it up with scripture. And if you're just repeating scripture, nobody can call you blasphemy if you're repeating the scriptures, unless they're going to say that the Bible is blasphemy. And I don't think anybody that actually believes in the scriptures is prepared to say that. They'd have to say that the prophet Isaiah is blasphemy. They'd have to say the book of Ruth is blasphemy. No, we've been saying that. So yeah.
Who decides what their eternal destination is?
Okay. Now this one's a little more complicated for me. I was about to say it's stupid, but then I thought about it for like a hot second and it hit me. There's two layers of this. But Bree, you want to go first? Are you still driving? Left foot.
You go first.
All right. So for me, there's the first level. The engineers are deciding what the eternal destination is by setting up eternal destinations. That's the very superficial level. That's a very because I mean, my eternal destination, it would be a pizza shop, but I don't get to choose that. So on the first level, obviously the engineers are determining the eternal destination, and I have no choice there. But under that choice is a secondary choice. These are the choices. You can either go to the Kamala Convention or the Trump Convention. You got to pick one. And how you live determines which convention you're going to go to. So then by my actions, I then make a choice to which eternal destination I go to, the Trump Convention or the Kamala Convention. So there are two choices. There was the setup choice, the overarching choice as what are the range of possible outcomes. And then there's the choice I made with my actions, which one I would slither into. So, I mean, we actually both choose in this scenario. So this question is another flawed question in my opinion, but I don't even know that they wanted to keep people bound to these two. I think even based on this experiment, we should be choosing outside of what was prescribed. But anyway, Brick, you go ahead and go there while I look at these comments.
I pretty much agree with it. Like they're making it on the higher level because there's the fact that there is a destination. They decided that, and then of course through our own actions, since we do have free will, we determine it as well. So I agree with it.
Oh my God, you're dirty. If we choose the Kamala Convention, but if she's a Howard, she won't be speaking. Okay, sidebar. How did y'all feel about her flaking out when she lost the election and did not come out to say anything to her people that was there for hours? That was so bothersome to me. And to me, it justified not voting for her because that's just such a pissy thing to do, to not greet or say something to the people that showed up for you and spend hours outside.
Her real self came out.
Yeah, she felt entitled to the position. Because anybody that had any level of graciousness or humility could have came out and said, you know what, it's not the outcome that we wanted tonight. And we're going to keep thinking about we're going to keep looking at the numbers and seeing what we track overnight. But, it looks like we may lose this one, but we're not done fighting. We're still going to blah, blah, blah. She could have said anything. Like, we're going to come back and see you all in the morning. I appreciate y'all being here all day, but we're going to wrap this up tonight because, things are looking bad, but it always looks darkest before the dawn, that kind of stuff.
Like we're not going to announce anything till every vote is counted or something. She could say anything. She didn't come out there and say nothing. Man, I'd be like, you raggedy bitch.
Man, for real.
You raggedy.
Freedom. Right. Like it was lame, but I would have roasted her. She gave it. I would respect the slurred speech. I respect it. The emotions make you cry sometimes, and all you want to do is run and hide. Listen. That's what somebody said too. And I hated that they said,
Maury, then you ain't ready to be the president. Then
yeah,
sit your ass down.
And that's what somebody said too. And I hated that they had a point. It was like, this is why I can't vote for a woman president. Too emotional to come out. And I was like, God dang it. It wasn't Kevin, but it was just so funny to hear. I was like, people are going to justify not voting for a woman because of this woman. Couldn't come out and just say something. She don't care what nobody thinks. She gonna respond what she feel like responding. What we not gonna do is Beyonce still got that money. Oh, that money thing is a whole nother man.
Where would the bots be without the engineers?
Where would the bots be without the engineers? Well, if the engineers created the bots, they'd be nowhere. There'd be no bots. That's a weird.
Yeah, that was weird. I don't know what that means.
Oh, maybe there's more to the question.
What was the?
Nope.
Okay. They probably give us some little simple ones. I had my oldest watch this.
Oh,
so maybe they're trying to pull in like younger, something that even the younger kids could kind of be like, oh no,
Man, that's funny. I thought they was maybe about to put a couple of pictures down there, like in heaven, or like the perfect world. I don't know.
The engineer's intent for creating the whole thing.
Freedom. They was bored. They needed something to do. Shit.
So I think we make an assumption. that the engineers had a perfect world that they existed in. And they were bored. I think, we keep saying that.
They could be like
they didn't have evil.
Bots. Right.
They didn't have evil. They God, he's perfect, all love, all great. I think we keep trying to put whatever created this as being, but yet perfect and benevolent. We keep trying to put the designers, the planners as benevolent. I kind of like your thing about it was about experiencing.
Right.
It wasn't about good or evil or happiness, or it wasn't about that. It was about the full range of potentiality. Yeah. I like that the most because that's the most likely. It's very hard for me to believe that there was a purely benevolent being at the top of the seat of hierarchy.
You know what? I want to create a problem for myself today.
Yeah. It does. It just does not seem like a purely benevolent. I'm bored. Why would a purely benevolent being get bored and create people?
They wouldn't even know what boredom is. They would just be like, yeah. I think it was just to experience a material body, to bring yourself down, to you know, to compound all the atoms into this material form where you can like do shit. That seems fun. That seems cool. What would happen?
Yeah. And what if it wasn't even a thing for entertainment? Like, we don't even know that God isn't driven by compulsion. What if we're just another function, like a bodily function of God? Kind of like how, like, what is it? What makes the blood cells? Is it the liver, kidney? What is it? What something makes blood cells, creates blood cells?
The spleen.
Spleen? Okay. So what if like Earth is just a spleen and we're like the little blood cells being created? Like we were like an involuntary, like what if we're an involuntary function within the God complex, whatever God is? What if we're just some involuntary function that's happening, but not designed, like not purposeful in the way we think it is? We're here to be part of the fivefold ministry. Because you can have a lot of complexity that happens without it having, and it has an important function, but it's not so perfect that it is not without flaw. I mean, because our bodies have flaws. White blood cells attack healthy things. Like we have things that have these perfect, beautiful, perpetual engine designs, and then boom, they turn on us or they happen the wrong way. We have some kind of disorder. Yeah, like a bowel movement. What if we're a bowel movement? What if we're waste products? What if our spiritual beings, what if our spiritual beings are the waste product of God? That's why maybe our world just goes so awry, because our spirits are the trash of the spirit world. We are the bowel movement of spirits. So we're the excrement. We're spirit excrement. And we get dropped into these little plop bodies. Like, what if? So what if? Then what? White blood cells have culture too, dude. Yeah. Or in a petri dish. It could be any of these things. And we wouldn't know. We wouldn't know. We would not know. But what if the big body of spirit we call God every now and then takes a dump and it becomes a human? That'd be crazy. That'd be interesting. That would be interesting. Man. But I like Breeze. To answer number 9. I do like what was the engineer's intent for creating the whole thing. I do like it. It feels like it's for experience. It feels like it's just for us to go through. You go through, you experience stuff, and then boom. Uncle Laura, that's kind of what same-sex of Buddhism believe. Reincarnation, different lives, timelines. This could be this sphincter of all experiences. That doesn't make me feel secure being a piece of crap in God's eyes. But the Bible says that your righteousness is as a filthy rag. Your righteousness is nothing to God. You're right. You're nothing. Absolute nothing. The only way you can be something is by accepting Jesus. You accept Jesus and you float to the top. You become a floater if you accept Jesus. Interstellar movie vibes. Karma leads to different lives. This could be punishment for just one shitty wrong in the life. Yeah, listen, it could be. It could be anything. It could be anything. You become something by transformation mentally. Okay, yeah. You become manure. You get used to grow something when you get transformed. Mind renewal. See? Manure. Mind renewal. Manure. It's like phonetically the same.
And finally, how would you have done it differently?
Ooh. Boom. How would y'all have done it differently? So this is the last question. And then we'll get out of here for the day. So remember when you said analogies have to be palatable for certain audiences? You're doing great with the toilet analogies. Listen, I know. Trust me, I know.
It's a specialty. Shit talk.
Listen.
Shit talk.
Hey, listen. I'm the shit. How could I not be on one? Anyway, what do you think, Bree? How would you have done things differently? Would you do things differently?
Hold on, let me think. Because my first inclination is no.
Yeah, I knew you would. I'm not even a fart. Ooh.
You know
I
what?
set myself up.
Would make.
I gotta get on cam. Oh God.
I probably wouldn't have banished the angels and shit from like manifesting and just like coming down here and just kicking it in their regular form and shit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like whatever was going on back in Enoch Day, I probably would have let that shit rock. Unless it was like threatening to like extend. It probably was a threat to like to make humans go extinct though. So he probably was like, I gotta nerf this. I gotta call it.
Yeah.
Put an end to it. They don't stand a chance. Sense. So yeah, maybe that's why. Like, but if it wasn't an extinction level event, like they said on Loki, it wasn't an extinction level event, I probably would have let that shit rock.
It seems like he could have just started again though. Like it shouldn't have been a thing to God.
He basically, what do you mean, like how he murked everybody with the flood?
Yeah, kind of. Okay, well, all the humans go extinct because all the angelic have demigod people because of them. Like all the humans get wiped out. So I just start them again. Like I got billions and billions of planets. I'll just start them again.
Yeah, but he kind of saved the step though. Cause he was like, I mean, we kill them all. We just say these 8. Like I'm not gonna start over to make the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I just put these little 8 to the side.
Mm.
Like why?
Like when you get that like a little leaf from a plant, you bury that leaf and it springs up in the plant. I ain't
trying to make this shit again. Like let me put these little 8 to the side.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's pretty much what he did. He also don't like to waste time, it seems. I mean, he can waste time, but he's like, I'm not finna go through all this, making them again, naming all these animals and shit. You know, let me just pick the good ones. I like them. Them turned out pretty good. We'll put them in. We'll keep them, and we'll just start over from there. This is like a reset, but not a hard reset.
It's like living on a game on play mode and walking away. Yeah, AFK, man. Listen. The Sims. It's interesting. I would do something. I'm not gonna lie to you. I like a lot about this existence. I think having lived my life, I would make the things that we kind of do naturally, I would make those the aberration. And the things that we kind of have to work to do, like, we got to do all the work to be set, like, be thoughtful, to be considerate, I would have made those our natural state, but had maybe the anomalies be the stuff we do normally, like the selfishness, the indulgence, the lack of, like, I'd make that the outlier. It feels kind of flipped. Like, like wide is the path to destruction, narrow is the gate to salvation. I'd flip that. Like, there's no way I would want to create something and then most of it gets wasted. So I'd make the path to salvation wide. Like, it'd be big wide. Like, but maybe I'd have like Rainbow Road. The wide this is a nice little wide road. Donkey Kong, Bowser, and about 2-3 other racers can be side by side. But you can still slip off the edge. So the margins are slim. So I would probably make it the opposite. People are more naturally disciplined, naturally agreeable, naturally want to share. I think that's the nature I would put in people. But then have this, put a little yeast in there, put a little something that'll rise up later. That would be the thing. So that people, like, when they got selfish, it wasn't normal. It was like every now and then, like every 6 months, somebody got real selfish, like, I ain't sharing with none of y'all, like something like that. As opposed to the opposite, where people are just completely selfish, self-absorbed, and then every now and then they want to throw something in the bucket at Christmas. Like, I'm selfless. I would flip it. That's, I think, what I would do if I were to do different. But what about y'all? Quantum says, I Thanos a lot of shit. The fuck out of here. I feel you. I would not curse all of humanity because of Adam's sin. I would have explained to them why they made the choice and how harmful it could become. And y'all would have parented them. And if they made the mistake, tell them again. You would have been a good parent to them. Hey, Adam, no. Mommy said no.
Mommy said no. To humanity, girl.
Yeah, like a parent with children. Yeah. See, if my child makes a mistake, I'm not going to curse the entire bloodline to the 4th generation. Mommy said no, not this tree.
I said, fuck them kids, boy.
Not this tree. Spit it up. Spit the fruit out. Spit the fruit out. Spit it out. I ain't playing with you. I created safety net for those that might fall and allow rehab process for mental transformation. Okay. I like it. I like it. Okay. Well, listen. I like it. I like it a lot. Then they asked, what did I do wrong? Well, Adam said 6,000. Oh, shoot. That's crazy. Kilroy is here. Holding the grandkids responsible for what the grandparent did is some North Korea shit. Man, it's crazy. And the Bible even says to not hold like the sins of the father against the son. Like the Bible even talks about that, which is crazy. But we're all allegedly experiencing the sins of our father Adam and mother Eve, which is it's weird. It's weird. Like, so the Bible, in my mind, contradicts itself in a lot of places. But as far as that thought experiment, I thought it was interesting as far as it did create, it gave justification for the range of possibilities, including evil. And it gave a compelling argument that most people wouldn't, and a lot of people would. A lot of people would choose the imperfect world because I think we're used to it. One, we're familiar with it. So we stick with what's familiar. It's hard to want to choose something different. And choosing something different that we've never seen is also difficult. That's what JC did. My superhero. Yeah. Y'all love y'all some Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. Is that a pimple? Oh, no, it's not. Bree is back.
Oh, okay. I don't know what happened.
Shit, I don't even know what happened to Yellow. We about to go send a search party for him. I'm about to go hurt him. But listen, Bree, what you got going on this week? What's your schedule looking like? Well, I got you.
Well, besides my usual stuff, it's kind of normal, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
besides, like, certain, like, like on Tuesdays, it has to either be after 5:30 or like in the middle of the day. And then, like Wednesdays is fine after 3.
You said fine after what? You broke up. She gone. She going through a tunnel. Or I'm going through a tunnel. I don't even know. One of us is in the tunnel. Who can y'all hear? Worrying about a pimple? Are you in 11th grade? No, because I have the hair growing pattern of an 11th grader. So this little patch of skin right there is where I don't have hair growing. I thought it was a pimple. I thought it was like a growth. I thought it was like 3D.
I had a phone call.
Got you.
Yeah, I hate StreamYard on the phone. But okay. Yeah. So after 3.
After 3 on Wednesday?
Yep. And then kind of same for Thursday, and then of course I'm free Friday, Saturday.
Okay. All right. So I am moving tomorrow's stream to Wednesday after 3.
All right. Is that the one we kind of talked about in Discord?
I don't know. Wednesday was a lukewarm Christians. I don't think we talked about that. Your mama. I'm sorry. I started saying it. I try not to talk about people's mama because I don't know if they alive or dead. My bad. But your mama, it started slipping out. My bad. I don't know the state of your mama. Mama Quantum, sorry. Rest in peace if you're gone. If you're here, love you. Thank you for Quantum. She's great. So but your mama started slipping out too soon. My bad. I couldn't catch myself. Mom was already out my mouth before I thought about it. My bad. My bad. Let me know. Oh, it would be a compliment if your mama looked like the 11th grader. I just hate saying your mama. You're right. I just hate saying your mama, and I don't know because everybody don't take that the same way I take it. Your mama's an innocent clapback in my age, but everybody don't feel the same. I found that out the hard way. Everybody don't take your mama jokes the same. Never met her mama, but I thank her for her daughter. Absolutely. Got to thank these moms for creating these beautiful women's. Got to. But you said Wednesday at 3. So tomorrow, the one for tomorrow is lukewarm Christianity. Schizopneumic. an innocent clapback. Yeah, just your mama, these nuts, got him. Those are innocent clapbacks. That's all. See, no bad consequences from your attempted bad act. See, yeah, exactly. So tomorrow is schizopneumic, pneuma being the spirit. So people who are schizospirituality. So why so many people are lukewarm? So I got a video from Hardly Initiated, about a 10-minute clip. And I think I added a couple other things to tie it together. That was probably not the best motion. Let me pause that too. So I had it for tomorrow, but I can move it to Wednesday. And then Friday is the one where we talked about in Discord. You don't need to love God to be saved.
Right. You ain't doing that, boy. Whatever you said, I said.
Yeah, you said it. You said it. All right. So I'm moving the lukewarm Christian thing to Wednesday, so Bree can be here. And then Friday is that you don't need God to be saved. If you disagree with that statement, bring your Bible. If you disagree with that statement, bring your Bible. Matter of fact, Wednesdays, I'm moving it to 3:30. Because you said after 3, which means I need to move it to after 3. So I'm putting it at 3:30.
Perfect.
I know how you people are.
Yep, you better. Because every time we're going to prove you right.
Yeah, all right. So Wednesday, 3:30, lukewarm Christianity. And then next week, so listen. Yeah, so I wanted to do it's a juicy week. Lots of Christians are paranoid as shit. For real. That's true. Especially when the witches appear. You enjoy watching them when the witches appear. Yeah, so this week is going to be Christianity. And then next week, the week of Thanksgiving, I might do 2 streams that week early in the week. But I want to do something that is kind of related to relationships, but not like man-woman relationships, kind of general. So one is going to be is that this week? Let me see. Hold on. Nope, that's this week. That's this week. Get rid of this one. Give me a second. There's something I mentioned briefly with Bree. Like when people talk about changing a person, people talk about like trying to pressure or influence or inspire someone to change who they are and how they are. I kind of want to talk about that. Because going into the holiday season, there's a lot of people that we're in relationships with that we kind of want to change, or we hope that they change or something like that. So I kind of want to talk about that wanting people to change thing. And then I also want to talk about letting people go. Like how do you know when it's time to let something go? So I kind of want to talk about those two because I don't know exactly what's going to be going on with me in December as far as my ability to stream. So I kind of want to get those two out. So that's I'll probably do those two. And if I do a third next week, it'll be emotional labor. I mean, because that feels very fitting for Thanksgiving and would fit the like changing people, cutting somebody off, and then the emotional labor. I feel like those are all kind of energetically tied together. So if I do 3, those will be the 3 next week. Unless something pops up.
Trying to throw hints.
I'm just saying it's real. It's real. It's real. So that's kind of what I've got going on next week. So this week, probably get 3 in. There may be some pop-up stuff. Because there's one thing that's kind of interesting going on now with this trophy wife lady, but there's not a lot of information. It will kind of mostly be manosphere-ish, kind of making fun of this lady and her problems. So I kind of feel like Yella does, like seeing her tears satisfy some portion of me, but her kids are in a very real situation allegedly. So I really kind of don't want to make fun of that until I know she's a complete moron and lying. So I don't know. Something may come up that pops up this week, but
this is why the aliens won't reveal themselves to us. I'm telling you.
Just saying, man. When you hear somebody say, "Oh, she's a Shira 7 acolyte," I'm like, ugh. Seeing her cry doesn't hurt me. Kind of makes me a little happy. Sprinkle, sprinkle. When it no longer fits, you must quit. And see, that's a conversation. Because Yella made some compelling points. Like, we do quit far too easy in a lot of dynamics and relationships. Yeah, he might be working. Where is Greg? which is 80% boring white chicks who want to feel special, and the other 20% is boring non-white chicks who want in on the action. I like it. I like it. So that's what's going on. That trophy wife lady, only because that Brittany from Love Is Blind, so that whole trophy wife trend, I'm not a fan. Not a fan. They're users, and they deserve some negativity, but not the kids. Not the kids. But she is a case study in people that don't know what they're doing. Like, cause she wasn't a trophy wife, but she was pretending to be one. So there was a whole problem there. You brought up some good points about people not knowing how to identify predators. And I would also enter into this thing because we had the whole Cooley thing about single motherhood. She was a single mother. She was going from relationship to relationship. As soon as she was dealing with this guy, she was talking about, I need some place to stay. There is a thing about a guy who is not the father of your children, who wants to be. I think this is a red flag that I think a lot of women overlook because it's idealized. A man that wants to come in and take care of your children. I think that should actually be a red flag. I don't think the natural state of a person is they're going to want to come in and take care of your children that they did not create. That's not normal for a dude to want.
It's really not.
Yeah, it's not. So I think that should automatically that shouldn't be like esteemed, like something women should like. Oh, he came in and wanted to be. No, why does he want?
He immediately wanted to be a dad. He was so already attached to the kids. He just loved the kid. He just
girl. He should be resilient. He should love you enough to, because I heard her. She said she got away from the guy before because he just tolerated her kids. And I would say that's the guy she should have stuck with, because you are with her. You love her enough that you're willing to tolerate them. And through relationship, you'll learn to love the kids. But you didn't get with her to get with kids. And like, that's weird for me to hear. And I do know there are guys that love other people's kids. They don't want to have any of their own. I know that. But it's also rare. And it's rare enough that anybody that's pursuing a relationship with somebody with kids, if they have certain arguments, if they're not saying like, I just don't want kids. So anybody I date, they already got to have their kids, but I don't want a single one. And this dude was not that. So I think there's enough flag there to talk about, but I don't know if anybody else really wants to talk about it. But that's kind of the thing, because it happened. Her being a single mom trophy wife, and then Cooley with the single mom trophy wife that he's hiding. Like, that kind of, for me, ties together. And it's kind of interesting, but it wouldn't tie to nothing else I'm doing this week or next. That was the thing about that. I didn't really have a place for it to make sense.
I try to jump in and come to those. It's an interesting conversation, but yeah, people are really bad at, just because people think of things through their own lens, or like they don't understand attractive desire, sexuality, and they don't really understand what they're dealing with a lot of times. And they get a false sense of security way too fast.
Sorry, I blow my nose real quick. Sorry, y'all. Try to get y'all. But yeah, we're going to roll up out of here, man. Appreciate y'all for coming through. I will be back on Wednesday. I had it for Tuesday. I'll be back on Wednesday. And we'll do the lukewarm Christianity. And then on Friday, it'll be the you don't have to love God to be saved, to get that salvific power, that salvation. You don't need to love him. But it's an interesting conversation. Me and Inya and Bree were having it out last night. So it's kind of fun. It's interesting. And again, if you disagree, bring your Bible so that you can prove me wrong. I want you to prove me wrong. I want to see it. I want to see it. So here's your homework. If you don't believe I'm right about that, find in the Bible where for salvation it says that you have to love God. And that's the language I need you to look for. The Bible is very explicit on what you need for salvation. Find where it asks you to love God for salvation. That way you have what? Today's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You got 4 days, about 24, 48, 72, 96. You've got about 96 hours to find somewhere in the Bible that requires you to love God to be saved from eternal damnation. So 96 hours, y'all. That's y'all's clock. So if you want to dispute that, you know what you got to do. If you don't want to dispute it, you can just come hear me say what I just told y'all in long form. So you got the TLDR just now. Great stream, folks. It's turning into the kind of church I like. Later, Kilroy was here. So that'll be Friday again. Wednesday is Lukewarm Christians, where I have some videos to show. I think about 3 different videos, because we're going to talk about Nick Cannon, because he he was accused of what do you call it? Gaslighting Jesus. And then there's a conversation about some lukewarm Christians who are still operating in the streets, but want to be between these Bible hymnal sheets. But we can make it out of here. Don't have an outro. I'll see y'all later. Peace.